Chapter 260. Giving Birth to a Spiritual Body, Double Lottery Draw. Shiyu, clouds embrace the light of Yuer, casting the shadow of a colorful cloud upon the ground. To those on earth, it appears the moon rests among the clouds as they wrap around each other, coexisting in reliance. Therefore, to achieve the essence of the supreme forgetful love technique, one must aspire to become heartless and forget emotion, yet one must first face the emotional trials, joy, sorrow, separation and reunion, to gain a profound enlightenment and a deep understanding of the mysteries of forgetting emotion. Previously, your teacher had asked Elder Yun to refine the red dust elixir, hoping that with its aid, you would comprehend the chaos of mortal life and could skip this step. But now it seems that, in the end, you must rely on yourself. Yun Wansheng uttered these words. Although she had not practiced the supreme forgetful love technique herself as a nascent soul immortal, her vision was naturally exceptional. She knew the profound mysteries of the supreme forgetful love technique. To face the emotional trials. Xianxia naturally knew what it meant to face emotional trials. It meant experiencing worldly love, joy, sorrow, separation and reunion. However, as she practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, she could feel herself becoming more and more indifferent. Rarely moved by emotions or disturbed by feelings. Under such circumstances, to experience joy, sorrow, separation, and reunion was extremely difficult. As for love, having practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, Xianxia no longer knew what love was. Shiyu, if you cannot succeed, then you need not continue practicing the supreme forgetful love technique. To indulge in such a cultivation technique without success may lead you astray into a demonic path, wasting your potential. With your talent and aptitude, even without practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, you can still build a flawless Tao foundation. Yun Wansheng spoke, saying so. She had been hesitant at first to allow Xianxia to practice the supreme forgetful love technique. But 5 years ago, after undergoing an emotional trial herself, her mindset and thoughts also changed. She gradually realized that emotional trials were not so easily overcome. One lapse could ensnare one completely. After being silent for a long while, Xianxia softly said, "Master, I wish to try again. I will give you 3 more years. If you do not succeed within this time, you will give up the supreme forgetful love technique," said Yun Wansheng to her disciple. "Shiyu shall heed master's words." In Xiaoxia's cool eyes, a gentle and lively smile appeared. Half a year later, Qingzhou Valley. Lu Chongxing and Lu Miaoyun supported Lu Miaoga outside the birthing room. Lu Yuanding was also nearby. The family head paced back and forth. He clenched and unclenched his fists, his expression extremely tense. The reason was simple. Lu Miaohuan was about to give birth. Father-in-law with Miao Huan's 6th level energy refinement cultivation level, there should be no problems, Lu Chongxing consoled, seeing the family head for the first time with such an expression. Lu Yuanding nodded. But he still focused on the birthing room, filled with anxiety. Seeing this, Lu Chongxing didn't know what else to say. Saying too much would seem as if he, as a husband and soon-to-be father, did not care for his wife and child. Suddenly, wah, a loud cry of an infant burst forth from the room. It caused everyone outside to shudder and their faces to beam with joy. At that moment, Lu Chongxing felt a strong surge within him, an indescribable sensation. Simultaneously, 2 system notifications sounded in his mind. Congratulations to the host for fathering 20 children with spiritual roots. You have earned 1 chance to draw a lottery. Congratulations to the host for the first birth of a child with a spiritual body. You have earned 1 chance to draw a lottery. What, a spiritual body? Hearing the notifications, Lu Changsheng's heart was overwhelmed and he was ecstatic. He hadn't expected the child born of Lu Miaohuan to not only have a spiritual root but also a spiritual body. A spiritual body was 1 in 10,000. At the current stage, he had never even dreamed that any of his children might possess a spiritual body. Having a spiritual root was already more than enough for him. But unexpectedly, the surprise was so unforeseen. The 90th child was the first to be born with a spiritual body. Seeing Lu Changsheng's excited and ecstatic demeanor, Lu Yuanding nodded approvingly, thinking Lu Chongxing wasn't so bad after all. In seeing such joy and excitement on the face of his son-in-law while his daughter gave birth, it showed he cherished and adored Lu Miaohuan. It's born, Chongxing, quick go in and take a look," urged Lu Yuanding to Lu Chongxing. Without checking the system for his child's spiritual root and spiritual body details, Lu Chongxing immediately pushed open the door and entered. "Congratulations, son-in-law, it's a young master," the midwife said to Lu Chongxing, beaming with happiness. "Good, good, good." Lu Chongxing nodded happily, handing out 2 spirit stones as a token of celebration, and then he approached the bed. Looking at Lu Miaohuan, who was a bit weak from holding the child, he took her hand and said, "Huan, you've worked hard." "Lu Chongxing, it hurt a lot," Lu Miaohuan said with a look of grievance as soon as she saw Lu Chongxing. "It's my fault letting you suffer," Lu Chongxing immediately soothed. Then he looked at the child and said, "This is our child, so adorable. Ordinary children are all wrinkled at birth." But Lu Chongxing knew that children born to cultivators were different, with skin smooth and radiant, never wrinkled. Such children, even without a spiritual root, would be martial prodigies if they practiced martial arts in the future. "He, so tiny," Lu Miaohuan said, smiling happily as she teased their little one in her arms. The baby didn't cry but peered around with round, curious eyes, gazing at the world. "Let's go see father-in-law," suggested Lu Chongxing. Not wanting to keep Lu Yuanding waiting outside any longer, the couple carried the child and stepped out of the room. "Oh, my dear grandchild, let me have a look." Lu Yuanding, who had been waiting impatiently outside, was thrilled to see Lu Chongxing and Lu Miaohuan with the baby and eagerly moved closer to hold the child, his eyes crinkling with a smile. Chapter 261. Giving Birth to a Spiritual Body. Double lottery draw. He bore none of the composure that the patriarch of the Lu family usually displayed. He reached out to touch and pinch the baby's small face, causing the infant to cry out with a wah. "Ha, you Shu Huaner's child is born. Your grandson is born, did you hear that?" Lu Yuanding, however, started laughing, his eyes moistening as he did. Hearing this, everyone knew that Lu Yuanding was missing his wife, the mother of Lu Miaohuan and Lu Miaoga. Oh, there, don't cry, don't cry." Lu Yuanding began to soothe the child again. "Chongxing, let's name the child Xianxia," Lu Yuanding said aloud. He had previously mentioned the naming of the child. Thinking of the names for the children of Lu Miaoga and Lu Miaohuan. A boy would be named Xianxia and a girl Qingzhu. "As father-in-law wishes." Lu Chongxing nodded. He had been through so many names already. He wasn't particularly concerned about naming, feeling that it was all the same regardless of who chose it. He also knew that the name Lu Yuanding had chosen carried the meaning of Qingzhu Mountain. In this manner, with everyone making merry and soothing the baby, Lu Chongxing finally found some free time after dinner. System. Lu Chongxing entered the study and silently called out in his mind. Name, Lu Chongxing. Identity, son-in-law of the Lu family of Qingzhu Mountain. Cultivation level, 8th level energy refinement. Lifespan, 29/155. Talents, 6th grade spiritual root, Gingjin body constitution, medium grade spiritual body. Cultivation techniques, 100 refinements treasure body art, 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, yin-yang harmony technique, immortal beauty technique. Spells, 7 luminaries sword beam, 7 luminaries sword shield, 7 luminaries sword flight. Items, golden light brick talisman treasure, black dragon magical bead, book of malevolent curses and fates, life substituting talisman, profound origin bead, 2nd rank puppet. Skills, talisman making 2nd rank, puppetry 2nd rank. Spiritual pets, 9 netherhound peach blossom goo, descendants, 1997's, Gingjin body constitution? Is this my child's spiritual body? Lu Chongxing saw that an additional Gingjin body constitution was listed under his own talents. Immediately he knew this was his son, Lu Qingshan's spiritual body. He instantly looked toward the descendants section, his spirit stirring slightly. Name, Lu Qingshan. Lifespan, 184th. Talents, 6th grade spiritual root, Gingjin body constitution, medium grade spiritual body. Cultivation level, none, as expected. Lu Chongxing saw the panel for his son and inwardly said as expected. Not only did he possess a 6th grade spiritual root, but also the Gingjin body constitution. The Gingjin body constitution is one of the more common types among the 5 elements spiritual body. I wonder which attribute my son's spiritual root leans towards. If the spiritual root also leans toward the metal attribute even with a 6th grade spiritual root, As long as he cultivates metal attribute cultivation techniques, his cultivation speed will not be any weaker than those with higher-grade spiritual roots. Lu Chongqing felt a surge of excitement and joy. Out of curiosity about spiritual bodies and because of Xia Zizhi's spiritual body, he had looked through a lot of information about them. He knew some of the more common spiritual bodies. This Gingjin body constitution was one of them. Although it wasn't considered a rare spiritual body, it was still a spiritual body. Knowing that this type of spiritual body, when paired with a spiritual root of the same attribute and cultivating metal attribute cultivation techniques, could match the cultivation speed of a higher-grade spiritual root. Moreover, it didn't just enhance the cultivation speed. Cultivating the corresponding attribute techniques, spells, and divine skills would also be more powerful, surpassing those of the same rank. It would be best if it's a metal attribute spiritual root, but it doesn't matter if it's not. Moreover, I have the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture, so there's no need to worry about any attribute of cultivation techniques unless my son has a mutant spiritual root. Lu Chongqing exhaled softly. There was now an added anticipation for the future of this child. He was the first prodigy of the Lu family. All the children before had lower-grade spiritual roots. This one not only has a middle-grade spiritual root, but also possesses a spiritual body. Immediately after, Lu Chongqing began his cultivation in a seated position. He personally experienced the effects of this Gingjin body constitution. After a long while. Is it because the child has just been born and the spiritual body is still growing? After briefly cultivating, Lu Chongqing could feel his intake and outflow of spiritual energy during qi refinement was smoother with the metal attribute. But the effect was not as astounding or transformative as one might imagine. He guessed in his heart that it was because the child was newly born. Like the spiritual root, this Gingjin body constitution was still growing. It needed to reach a certain age to be fully developed. I cultivate the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture, and this Gingjin body constitution mainly enhances the lethality of my spells somewhat, not contributing much to cultivation itself. The quickness of metal attribute spiritual energy might even affect the balance I maintain while cultivating the other attributes. Unless in the future I have more children, providing me with one of each of the 5 elements spiritual body types, Lu Chongqing mused to himself. He knew that such a spiritual body is best paired with corresponding attribute cultivation techniques. If one cultivates other attribute techniques, it might even be detrimental. And the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture that he cultivated required maintaining a balance among the 7 attributes of yin, yang, and the 5 elements. Lu Chongqing didn't pay too much attention to this. Thinking of the 2 additional draw chances he had, he silently invoked System Draw. Immediately the system's spinning wheel appeared. Start the draw. Seeing the roulette wheel, Lu Chongqing didn't overthink it. With a thought, he directly initiated the draw. Suddenly, a beam of golden light swiftly moved around the wheel, eventually settling on elixir medicines. Ding! Congratulations, host, on obtaining a 3rd-rank coagulation crystal elixir. Reward has been issued to the system's space, available for host to check at any time. An elixir medicine icon emerged from the spinning wheel, accompanied by a system notification. Coagulation crystal elixir? Lu Chongqing was surprised to see what he had drawn. He naturally knew what the coagulation crystal elixir was. It was somewhat similar to the foundation establishment elixir. But it was many times more precious than a foundation establishment elixir. An elixir that could help foundation establishment cultivators increase their chances of reaching core formation and enhance the quality of their core. For most cultivators, even a foundation establishment elixir was a luxury hard to come by. And this coagulation crystal elixir that aids in core formation, its preciousness could be imagined. Elixir medicine, coagulation crystal elixir. Quality, 3rd rank. Description: when a cultivator at the peak of foundation establishment attempts core formation, consuming this can increase the chances of core formation by 30% and also improve the quality of the core formed. Within the system space, information about the coagulation crystal elixir appeared. 30% increase in the chances of forming a core, and it even has some benefits to the core's quality. It seems this coagulation crystal elixir is just like the lifespan extension pill I drew before, belonging to the supreme category, which is why it has such effects, Lu Chongqing thought. With this coagulation crystal elixir, I won't have to worry about core formation once I have established my foundation. Lu Chongqing said with a joyful expression. He had initially wanted to draw a foundation establishment elixir. Unexpectedly, his draw turned out to be a coagulation crystal elixir, which was of a higher grade and more precious than a foundation establishment elixir. But core formation is still quite far off for me. Lu Chongqing sighed lightly, deciding not to dwell further on the coagulation crystal elixir. He planned to just store it in the system space. He would take it out when the time came to use it. Continue with the draw. Lu Chongqing looked at the system spinning wheel in front of him and proceeded with the draw. This was his first time doing consecutive draws. Having just drawn a coagulation crystal elixir, his heart was filled with the expectation of drawing something that he could actually use. Even though coagulation crystal elixirs were precious at his current stage, they were not immediately usable and would just collect dust. As the draw continued, the golden light on the spinning wheel moved, eventually stopping at the pets category. Chapter 262. Li Feiyu leaves, the Lu family ancestor passes away. There's one thing. Congratulations, host, for obtaining a 6-winged golden silkworm larva. The reward has been delivered to the system space. The host can check at any time. A golden insect pattern with a shining glow and a pair of wings on its back emerged from the big roulette wheel, accompanied by the sound of a system notification. 6-winged golden silkworm? Lu Chongqing looked at the reward drawn by the system, his eyebrows raised. He hadn't expected that among pet beasts, there were not only beasts but also bugs. This means that the pet lottery encompasses everything: feathers, fur, scales, insects, plants, and so on. If that's the case, in the future if I draw a plant demon pet, I won't have to worry about the spirit plants for cultivating the heavenly longevity technique. Lu Chongqing thought to himself. He had not forgotten the heavenly longevity technique he had acquired from Xiaolong. He had always thought that once he had the strength and conditions, he would have his wives and children plant trees for cultivation. Without further thought, Lu Changsheng's mental spirit gave a slight stir as he looked towards the 6-winged golden silkworm he had just drawn. Magical bug, 6-winged golden silkworm. Rank, Heaven rank superior. Description: one of the ancient rare insect species, lays eggs once every 100 years, hatches into larvae after another century. Newly hatched larvae have only one pair of wings, but mature ones have 3. They are fearless against divine skills and magic, but are ferocious, with low intelligence and difficult to tame. A heaven rank superior magical bug? Even a rank higher than the 9 Netherhound's bloodline. I wonder how long it will take for this 6-winged golden silkworm to mature and develop 6 wings. Lu Chongqing considered the information about the 6-winged golden silkworm, thinking to himself. What concerned him most was how long it would take for the 6-winged golden silkworm to grow. After all, at the moment the most challenging part about pet beasts was their cultivation phase. Cultivation times spanning dozens or hundreds of years were truly testing. For example, the 9 Netherhound had been at first-grade primary level for many years. Only about half a year ago, when Lu Chongqing finally had some surplus funds, he bought some spiritual beast pills for Lu Pingon to feed it regularly. It's now almost reaching the first-grade middle stage. Regarding the system's description that the 6-winged golden silkworm is ferocious, unintelligent, and hard to tame, Lu Chongqing didn't take it to heart at all. What does difficulty in taming have to do with him? Extract. With a flicker of his mental spirit, Lu Chongqing took the 6-winged golden silkworm out of the system space. Instantly, a golden silkworm about an inch long, as thick as a little finger, appeared. This silkworm had a pair of thin, cicad-like wings behind it. The wings shimmered with a faint golden light and emanated a violent and murderous aura. The 6-winged golden silkworm lays eggs every 100 years, hatches in another 100, and when the larvae hatch they are as hard as iron, comparable to magic artifacts, and immune to primary-level techniques. To grow from a larva to a 4-winged silkworm, it takes 200 years, equivalent to 3rd-rank strength. To grow from 4 wings to 6 wings, corresponding to 4th-rank peak, it needs 1,000 years. Lu Chongqing looked at the 6-winged golden silkworm in his hand and developed a general understanding of its condition. Impressive indeed. Just hatched larvae had almost the strength of the first-grade later stages. After raising it for a few decades, it would have the strength of a 2nd-rank foundation establishment. Once it went through its first metamorphosis and grew its 2nd pair of wings, it would have 3rd-rank strength. Another 1,000 years of growth to sprout the 3rd pair of wings and it would be at the peak of 4th rank, comparable to 5th rank. For a demon beast, this time frame is not long. But for Lu Chongqing, it was way too long. Pet beasts are of little use to me at my current stage. They can't directly enhance my strength. However, if these pet beasts can be cultivated and grow, they will all be formidable indeed, probably invincible at their respective ranks. Lu Chongqing sighed slightly, shaking his head. He then tried to sense the six-winged golden silkworm before him. Just like with the 9 netherhound and the peach blossom goo, he felt a connection with this six-winged golden silkworm. But just as the system description said, this six-winged golden silkworm was ferocious, not intelligent, and it was impossible to communicate properly. He could only transmit some simple commands. For example, to kill. If it weren't for the system having tamed it for me, this six-winged golden silkworm would probably kill anyone it saw. For now, let's just raise it. If I can find the corresponding methods to control and tame insects, the growth of this six-winged golden silkworm could be sped up quite a bit. Lu Chongqing thought to himself without lingering further. He then put the six-winged golden silkworm into the spiritual pet bag that held the Lockhart goo. The Lockhart goo, which looked listless and as if it was on its last breath, suddenly became alert as if it was frightened by the six-winged golden silkworm. Seeing this scene, Lu Chongqing couldn't help but think of Meng Xiaochan. She was clearly proficient in the art of insect control. He wondered if she knew how to cultivate the six-winged golden silkworm. If there were corresponding cultivation methods, then its growth rate could be greatly increased. But Lu Chongqing didn't ponder on it too much. His only connection to her was through the Lockhart goo. He had no idea where she had gone now. Moreover, for a rare magical insect like the six-winged golden silkworm, it was feared that cultivation methods were hard to come by. Jin Kingdom, the southern border mountains. In the bleak and wild swamps of the mountains, a girl in a purple dress commanded a swarm of insects to kill several snake demon beasts. After letting the swarm of insects and a blood-colored spider consume the bodies of the snake demon beasts, the girl continued on her way. When she emerged from the swamp and saw the peak shrouded in purple-black clouds, mysterious and towering into the clouds ahead, her face showed a look of surprise. Grandma said that my great-grandma was once the heaven spider emissary of the Five Poisons cult, one of the 3 great demon sects of the southern border of Jin Kingdom. The Five Poisons cult is skilled in the arts of goo poison and spiritual beasts. I have the 1,000 Poisons body and can hold great-grandma's token to join the Five Poisons cult. If only I hadn't lost the Lockhart goo with it, I might have been able to become the holy maiden of the Five Poisons cult. Chapter 263. Li Feiyu departs, the Lu family ancestor enters eternal rest. Meng Xiaochan looked at the spiritual vein mountain in front of her, feeling a sense of regret in her heart. The thought of the Lockhart goo caused a slight throb in her heart. She remembered that handsome young man with the upright figure. It said that the unique phoenix goo of the Five Poisons cult can cultivate the phoenix nirvana technique, which allows one to undergo a nirvana of fire, to be born and extinguished in the blink of an eye, washing away all the worldly impurities. I wonder if it could remove the effects of the Lockhart goo. This thought suddenly occurred to Meng Xiaochan. But as soon as the idea surfaced, her heart fluttered uneasily. She shook her head gently, dispersing the thought. Who goes there? In front of the towering mountain gate, 2 disciples in black stood watch. Seeing Meng Xiaochan, they stepped forward to inquire. The Five Poisons God Mountain was the domain of the Five Poisons sect. Naturally, not just anyone could approach freely. My name is Meng Xiaochan, a descendant of the heavenly spider envoy of the Five Poisons sect. Meng Xiaochan produced a token from her sleeve and handed it to one of the disciples. A descendant of the heavenly spider envoy? The 2 disciples examined the token, exchanging glances. One of them promptly said, "Fellow Daoist, please wait here, I shall go and report this." About the time it takes an incense stick to burn. A purple escape light shot down from the Five Poisons mountain, appearing before Meng Xiaochan in the blink of an eye. Disciple pays respect to the heavenly spider emissary. The remaining purple-clothed disciple rushed to bow and pay respects upon seeing the newcomer. So you are the descendant of my master. The newcomer was a 28 or 29-year-old woman in purple. Her face was stunningly beautiful and seductive, her skin as fair as snow. A pair of long, shapely legs, full and symmetrical. 2 crystal-clear feet, white throughout without a single flaw, like jade carvings. They seemed like pieces of art that one couldn't help but want to hold and carefully admire. Hers was a figure that seemed frail and slender in her sumptuous purple gauze, curvaceous in all the right spots yet appearing as if she couldn't withstand a strong wind, endlessly alluring. Her narrow, phoenix-like eyes were deep and dark, emanating a bizarre charm as she surveyed Meng Xiaochuan before her. Beneath the corners of her phoenix eyes, a single tear mole added a pity-invoking allure to her already enchanting appearance. Junior greets senior. Meng Xiaochuan respectfully nodded. She took some insect eggs from her storage bag, then released a blood-colored spider. Blood jade spider, it looks like you are indeed the master's descendant. The woman in purple slightly nodded, her expression turned much softer as she said, You've come to Five Poisons Mountain, are you looking to join our Five Poisons sect? Yes, senior, I wish to join Five Poisons Mountain, Meng Xiaochuan said respectfully. Since you are the master's descendant, would you be willing to be my disciple? The woman in purple looked at Meng Xiaochuan saying with a smile. Xiaochuan is willing. Meng Xiaochuan responded immediately upon hearing this. Good, from today on, you are now a disciple of Nangong Meili, Nangong Meili said with a light laugh. Afterward, Nangong Meili swept her sleeves and brought Meng Xiaochuan into the Five Poisons Mountain. 10 days after Lu Miaohuan gave birth. The child in Lu Miao's belly was also born. It was a girl. This child also had a spiritual root. But it was only a 7th grade spiritual root. Since Lu Miaohuan's child had come first, it had raised Lu Changsheng's expectations. Seeing that the child only had a 7th grade spiritual root, there was a slight sense of disappointment in his heart. However, he immediately adjusted his mindset. After all, having a spiritual root was already quite impressive. How could everyone be exceptionally talented? This must be the result of good breeding, Lu Changxing thought to himself. The fact that both Lu Miaoge and Lu Miaohuan had given birth to children, although luck played a part, also showed that the higher the cultivation level of the parents, the higher the quality of the spiritual root, and thus the higher the probability of their children possessing spiritual roots. The quality of the spiritual root was also likely to be better. After Lu Miaoge gave birth, Lu Changxing stayed in Qingzhou Mountain for 3 days before returning to Nine Dragons Market. Since both women had given birth, he had been on leave for a while, so it was not good to delay any further. Back in Nine Dragons Market, Lu Changxing searched for some books about insects. He also purchased various spiritual materials to try and nourish the 6-winged golden silkworm, and pondered what to feed it. Blood. The 6-winged golden silkworm could consume blood, whether it was meat or vegetables. This made Lu Changxing think to himself that the 6-winged golden silkworm was truly of a brutal nature. 2 months later, Lu Changxing returned to the mundane world, to visit his wives and children. That day, Li Feiyu also came to bid farewell to Lu Changxing. He indicated that he was ready to leave Rui County City and wanted to make a name for himself in the cultivation world. Feiyu, where do you plan to go for your cultivation journey? Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing asked. He had previously mentioned Red Leaf Valley Market and said it would be built and open in about half a year. But seeing Li Feiyu's demeanor, he clearly was not planning to go to Red Leaf Valley Market. Lu Changxing had a rough understanding of his friend's thoughts. He knew Li Feiyu had his own pride and stubbornness. He did not want to rely on others for an easy life. Knowing that going to Red Leaf Valley Market, there would be little chance for encounters or achievements. I haven't decided yet, but am planning to check out Azure Phoenix Immortal City, Li Feiyu said with a carefree and casual look. Azure Phoenix Immortal City. Lu Changxing paused for a moment when he heard this. He certainly knew of Azure Phoenix Immortal City. Jiang Country had 3 great immortal cities. Jiuxiao Immortal City in the central part, the #1 immortal city in Jiang Country, with incredibly prosperous cultivator marketplaces. Great Dream Immortal City located at the northern border, backed by the Great Dream Marsh. This marsh was boundless, shrouded in mist all year round, blocking the divine sense of cultivators. It was said that even nascent soul immortals who entered would never come back. Therefore no one knew what lay beyond the Great Dream Marsh. Some rumors said it was a forbidden land of absolute death. Others claimed it was an even vaster and more affluent cultivation world. Chapter 264. Li Feiyu departs, the Lu family ancestor passes away. The Azure Phoenix Immortal City is located on the southern border of Jiang Country, close to the Myriad Beasts mountain range and borders Yu Country. Not only can one go to the mountain range to temper oneself and hunt demon beasts for money, but one can also go to U country to interact with U country cultivators. At ordinary times, many U country cultivators gather in the Azure Phoenix Immortal City, which is considered a holy land for loose cultivators. Many loose cultivators who aspire to make a name for themselves will go to the Azure Phoenix Immortal City to take their chances. But likewise, such a place is incomparably dangerous. The level of danger is estimated to be tens of times that of the Nine Dragons market. Every year, countless cultivators are buried in the wilderness, unknown. The cultivation world is so vast, one must see it. I heard the Azure Phoenix Immortal City is a holy land for loose cultivators, and as a loose cultivator myself, naturally I should go and see. I'm not saying I'll make something big out of it, but at least I'll witness the cultivation world. Li Feiyu said with a smirk. He had made inquiries about the Azure Phoenix Immortal City and naturally knew its dangers. But danger and opportunity coexist. For an ordinary loose cultivator, if one wishes to rise above others, this is the best place. Otherwise, with his 7th grade spiritual root rolling in the secular world or small marketplaces, it would be difficult for him to achieve much in this lifetime. There's a year and a half left in our 10-year pact. Will you come then? Lu Chongqing inquired. Previously, Hong Yi had written to inquire of Xianxia, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin about the 10-year pact. All three had agreed, expressing that they would get together at that time. I'm not planning to head directly to the Azure Phoenix Immortal City, but instead to travel around first. After attending the pact, then I'll truly head to the Azure Phoenix Immortal City. Li Feiyu didn't hide his thoughts either. He knew the Azure Phoenix Immortal City was extremely dangerous. And he wouldn't just head there blindly. Although he had gained considerable understanding of the cultivation world over the years, he had not truly stepped into it. Most of his time was spent on Qingzhou Mountain, and his knowledge of the cultivation world wasn't direct enough. He planned to spend this next year and a half facing and adapting to the cruelty of the cultivation world. Chongqing, if I don't come back by then, please help take care of my home. Li Feiyu continued to speak. He had said this before. But now, just before leaving, he said it again. I've agreed to this, but I believe that situation will not arise. Lu Chongqing nodded slightly without the mood for jokes. He took out a stack of talismans, a first-grade middle-grade puppet, 300 spirit stones and a storage bag. Feiyu, take care of yourself. Keep these things for self-defense. When you return, well, drink and revel together. Lu Chongqing said this. Li Feiyu was his first friend in this world. He had even saved his life once. Now that the other was about to venture out for training experiences, one could imagine how hard and dangerous it would be. Naturally, he hoped his good brother would have smooth sailing. It's too precious, I can't accept it. Li Feiyu immediately shook his head when he saw the nearly 100 talismans, a puppet and so many spirit stones. When he was in Qingzhou Mountain relying on his own hard work, he could earn 5 or 6 spirit stones a month. Now in the secular world, by teaching Lu Changsheng's children and working with Hong Yi, he earned an average of about 10 spirit stones a month. What Lu Chongqing was offering was a considerable sum of money for him. If you still consider me a brother, then keep it. I can afford it now, and you will need some magic artifacts when you go out. Use these spirit stones to buy a few artifacts for self-defense. Lu Chongqing spoke with a solemn expression. Li Feiyu was only at the 4th level of his qi refinement. Even though he had the strength of a martial Dao innate grandmaster. But against a cultivator in the energy refinement middle stage wielding magic artifacts, he could easily suffer. If he had talismans and magic artifacts by his side, he would be much safer. He didn't offer his own magic artifacts because, apart from the green face sword and a few others, all were of high grade or exquisite quality which Li Feiyu couldn't utilize. Okay, I'll just owe you then. Li Feiyu, looking at Lu Changsheng's expression, took a deep breath and nodded earnestly. Then he said with a carefree attitude, Don't worry. Li Feiyu began adventuring through the world at the age of 12, traveling to all corners. It's not that easy for me to stumble and fall. Just to repay this debt, I will also make sure to live well. Li Feiyu said this. Subsequently, the two chatted for a long time. More than a decade of cultivation life had many memories worth reflecting upon. Especially since this might be the last time the two of them talked. The next day, Li Feiyu called Hong Yi over, and the three of them had a meal together before parting ways. At the moment of departure, Hong Yi also presented a lower-grade flying sword to Li Feiyu, advising him to take good care of himself. Sigh. Lu Chongqing watched Li Feiyu's retreating figure and sighed deeply. His heart was laden with the heavy feeling associated with lives' separations and death's finality. With the talisman and puppet by his side and relying on Feiyu's own strength and means, he should be able to fight against cultivators at the energy refinement late stage, or at least escape. Moreover, in the cultivation world, anything can happen. From cliff diving to find treasures to accidentally entering the secret realm of an ancient cultivator's cave. Who knows, Feiyu might just stumble upon an opportunity. Lu Chongqing consoled himself in his heart. He didn't indulge too much in sorrow or sentimentality. He discussed with Hong Yi about the Red Leaf Valley market. It would be almost half a year before it would be completed and open. He had already alerted the Lu family about the matter of the market's entry spots. However, as for the shops, only ordinary ones with mediocre locations were available to them. The desirable shop locations had been mostly retained by the 4 major families or allocated to other powers. Lu Chongqing learned that to establish the Red Leaf Valley market, the Lu, Bai, Yu and Jing families had all invested a great deal of thought and energy. Not only had they made expenditures to appease Qingyun's sect, but they had also semi-gifted some shops and cave dwellings to certain powers. To this Hong Yi minded not the slightest. Because for the better shops, the Rui Marquis mansion lacked enough spirit stones and simply couldn't afford them. If it weren't for the light cast by Lu Chongqing, they might not have even secured such an ordinary shop. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months had passed. On this day, the second elder sought out Lu Chongqing and informed him that he must immediately return to the family. The Lu family ancestor had passed away. The ancestor has passed away. In the past, Lu Chongqing had seen hints of the deathly aura upon the Lu family ancestor and knew his end was near. But he hadn't expected it to come so swiftly, so suddenly. Recalling how just a year ago this elder had presided over his wedding, he couldn't help but feel emotional. The ancestor had always hoped to see the Red Leaf Valley market completed, to take a good look at it, but sadly he didn't make it to that day. The second elder said with a sad expression. Those high within the Lu family ranks understood the Lu family ancestor's health more acutely than Lu Chongqing. After the great battle at Red Leaf Valley, the Lu family ancestor knew his days were numbered and had started making arrangements for after his demise. His only lingering regret was his wish to see the Red Leaf Valley market. Yet in the end the Lu family ancestor did not live to see that day. Soon after, Lu Chongqing followed the second elder and several Lu family disciples back to Qingzhou Mountain. The Lu family disciples gradually returned to Qingzhou Mountain. All over the mountain, everyone's mood was somber with sorrow. Cultivation families are maintained through the bonds of blood and kinship. All of the family disciples from a young age nurtured by the family, practicing cultivation, marrying, bearing children, spreading branches and leaves, all on this land. And the Lu family ancestor was the sky within the hearts of all Lu family disciples. Now with the ancestor's passing, it was natural for all to be engulfed in profound grief. Several days later in the Lu family ancestral hall, alas, the ancestor lived a life of diligence dedicated to our family. Now that his soul has returned to the heavens and earth, we the younger generations of the Lu family are filled with inconsolable sorrow. Lu Yuanding mourned with a face full of grief. He spoke of the Lu family ancestor's contributions and merits to the family. After the eulogy was delivered, Lu Yuanzhong stepped forward. He escorted the Lu family ancestor's spirit tablet into the ancestral hall, then lit 3 sticks of incense and bowed solemnly. He announced loudly, Lu Yunzhong of the Lu family bids farewell to the ancestor as his soul returns to the heavens and earth. The Lu family disciples bid farewell to the ancestor as his soul returns to the heavens and earth. The Lu family disciples bid farewell to the ancestor as his soul returns to the heavens and earth. The Lu family disciples bid farewell to the ancestor as his soul returns to the heavens and earth. At this moment, all the Lu family disciples together echoed the call, bowing in salute. This must be the transmission of the family bloodline, right? Compared to the loose cultivators who are like duckweed in the wind, the Lu family ancestor was able to pass away at home and be buried in the family spirit land, his spirit tablet placed in the ancestral hall with his life's achievements recorded in the family records. His life can be considered fulfilled. After all, not all cultivators can live long and prosperous lives. It is through this manner that one's bloodline, one's spirit, continues to be passed down and endure. Lu Chongqing also bowed and chanted along, his emotions stirred. He began to understand why family ties in this world were so deep. On one hand, it's maintained by the bonds of blood and kinship. On the other, it's about how one is irrevocably bound to the family from the moment of birth, bound for life. Within the entire family, everyone is striving for a shared goal, a common belief. Chapter 265. Uncle returned. _1 Cultivators care less about the trivial formalities of the secular world. After worshipping the spirit tablet of the Lu family ancestor, the ceremony is considered over once everyone has offered 3 sticks of incense. The crowd gradually dispersed. Just as Lu Chongqing was about to leave, Lu Yuanding, the newly advanced ancestor, called out to him. Chongqing, how is your cultivation progressing? Lu Yunzhong had a scholarly appearance, bearing some resemblance to Lu Yuanding. Lu Chongqing also knew that this ancestor Yunzhong was indeed the blood brother of his father-in-law, Lu Yuanding. Therefore he should address this ancestor as uncle father-in-law. However, in cultivation families like Qingzhou Mountain, as soon as one succeeds in foundation establishment, their generational status automatically rises to that of an ancestor. Reporting to ancestor, I am currently at the 6th level of qi refinement, and I estimate it will take 3 more years to reach the peak of the 6th level, Lu Chongqing replied. That was what Lu Chongqing said, having declared 2 years earlier that he was at the 6th level of qi refinement and naturally not daring to overstate his progress. Very good, Lu Yuanzhong commented with a slight nod after hearing this. After giving Lu Chongqing a few appraising looks, he took out a jade scroll. I've heard that you have been cultivating the Chongqing technique, and this greenwood art is a high-grade cultivation technique treasured by our Lu family. You should take it and cultivate it, Yuanding said. If there's anything you don't understand, you can also ask Yuanding. He cultivates this greenwood art as well, Yuanzhong added. Lu Chongqing was somewhat surprised to hear this. He had not expected Lu Yuanzhong to stop him just to give him a cultivation technique. Having been busy in Red Leaf Valley Market over the past year, Lu Chongqing had rarely interacted with the newly advanced ancestor. They had only met briefly a couple of times. He hadn't expected that immediately following the death of the Lu family ancestor, the latter would express goodwill toward him. Thank you very much, ancestor. Lu Chongqing immediately expressed his gratitude with respect. Although he already possessed the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture and did not need this greenwood art, it was nevertheless a gesture of kindness. After all, to his knowledge, the highest level techniques treasured by the Lu family were a few high-grade cultivation techniques. Now that they're willing to pass on one to him, they have effectively accepted him as one of their own. Remember, this technique is for your cultivation only and must not be passed on, Lu Yuanding cautioned. Ancestor, please rest assured Chongqing understands, Lu Chongqing nodded and replied. Having spent so many years in Nine Dragons Market, he had come to understand why the inheritance of techniques in the cultivation world is so scarce and precious. These inheritances originate from immortal sects, families, or loose cultivators. Immortal sects, as the primary suppliers, prohibit the sale of high-grade cultivation techniques and skill inheritances within their territories to continuously harvest excellent disciples and affordable labor. This is why they are forbidden from selling advanced methods. And why would any cultivation family want to sell the very foundation that sustains them? They prefer to abide by this rule, preventing leakages of such inheritances and partaking in the benefits. Loose cultivators are no different. It's improbable for them to selflessly risk censure by selling high-grade techniques. Most choose to deal privately instead. Thus, most loose cultivators who wish to obtain higher-order techniques or inheritances are either reliant on fortunate encounters or, should they possess a decent talent, join a cultivation family or a faction under an immortal sect. This has become an unwritten rule in the cultivation world. Primary-level techniques and first-grade skill inheritances are commonplace and can be purchased with a few spirit stones. But if one wishes to advance further without fortune, they must find a way to join a power and be exploited. This is why the 3rd young master of the Yu family once offered high-grade techniques and insights into foundation establishment to tempt Lu Chongqing. All right, you may go about your business now, said Lu Yunzhong, patting Lu Chongqing on the shoulder without much else to add. Yes, ancestor, Lu Chongqing replied, bowing slightly before taking his leave. Lu Chongqing, Lu Yunzhong muttered the name to himself as he watched Xianxia's retreating figure, recalling the last wish of the Lu family ancestor and the value he had placed on Chongqing. He exhaled softly. 3 days later, the second elder informed Lu Chongqing to return to Nine Dragons Market. Chongqing, do you want me to look after the spiritual talisman shop? Lu Miaoge asked, holding her daughter Lu Qingzhu and speaking softly. Having recovered from childbirth, she was ready to take on some of Lu Changsheng's burdens. No need, Sister Miaoge. You should stay at home and cultivate and learn talisman making with Grandma. If you go to the marketplace, it will distract you and hinder your cultivation. Besides, Qingzhu is still small and needs your care, Lu Chongqing said, pinching his daughter's chubby cheek with a smile. Lu Miaoge's talisman-making skill was currently transitioning from an upper-grade talisman master to a top-level talisman master. Therefore, he did not want his wife to run back and forth between two places and be overburdened. All right, Lu Miaoge replied with a tender smile. Having become a mother, her clear and ethereal countenance was now often adorned with a gentle and maternal smile. She continued, Chongqing, the Red Leaf Valley Market will open in a few months. The family plans to open a talisman shop there and they want me to oversee and manage it. If you find Nine Dragons Market too far, I can go there and you can take my place in Red Leaf Valley Market, she suggested. Despite being a wife, her disposition remained as gentle as water, nurturing and almost motherly kindness. Sister Miaoge, the Lu family ancestor, had given me a shop in Red Leaf Valley, and am planning to set up a talisman shop there. So for Nine Dragons Market, I intend to let Grandma find someone to manage it, Lu Chongqing said, pondering slightly. The Lu family ancestor had rewarded him with a shop and a cave dwelling in Red Leaf Valley Market. Now that the market was about to open, Lu Chongqing did not want to simply rent out the shop and dwelling. He was thinking of establishing another talisman shop there. Chapter 266. Uncle returned. After all, Red Leaf Valley Market just opened, and it's a great time to seize market share. Now that the kids are getting older, in a few years they will start cultivation one after another. And then the expenses will increase significantly. If we have a talisman shop, that would mean another stable source of income. Open a spiritual talisman shop? Lu Miaoge paused slightly when she heard this, then nodded and said, That's doable. With your talisman-making skill, you're already capable of opening your own shop. However, about this matter, you need to give fourth Grandma a heads up. Not long ago, Lu Chongqing had taken his talisman skills up a notch, demonstrating the prowess of a first-grade top-level talisman master. With such a level of skill coupled with the Lu family's supply channels, sustaining a talisman shop should be no issue. I've already mentioned this to Grandma and plan to talk to her about it more later. Alright, second elder is still waiting for me. Sister Miaoge, I'll head over now, Lu Chongqing said. He didn't linger to talk more with Lu Miaoge. After kissing his daughter and wife on their cheeks, he waved his hand and took off. Arriving at the entrance of Qingzhu Mountain, he boarded the second elder's spirit boat and set off for Nine Dragons Market. 2 days later, Lu Chongqing returned to Nine Dragons Market. As soon as he arrived home, Xia Zhiyue joyfully brought him good news. Husband, I think I'm pregnant. 2 months ago she had broken through from the 3rd level qi refinement to the 4th level. After Xia Zhiyue reached the 4th level qi refinement and expressed her willingness, Lu Chongqing didn't practice contraception anymore. But whether it was bad luck or due to her spirit-nurturing physique, it took so long for Xia Zhiyue to conceive. You're pregnant, let me see? Lu Chongqing smiled when he heard the news, placing his head against Xia Zhiyue's lower abdomen. He immediately confirmed that she was indeed pregnant. Xia, you should rest and take good care of yourself at home from now on. Lu Chongqing gently stroked her smooth black hair and spoke softly. Even though Xia Zhiyue only had a 7th grade spiritual root, her spirit-nurturing physique made him quite expectant of their child. He could feel his own spiritual root was almost at the juncture between 6th and 5th grade. Having another child with a 6th grade spiritual root should promote his own from 6th to 5th grade. If they were to have a child with a 4th grade spiritual root like Xia Zhaoyang, that would be a direct leap to success. Yes, of course, Xia Zhiyue nodded obediently, thinking about the plan to open a spiritual talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley Market. Lu Chongqing went next door to Gao He's house and knocked on the door. Uncle Lu. The door was opened by a 17 or 18-year-old girl with a delicate visage, dressed in a moon-white embroidered garment. It was Gao He's daughter, Gao Xiaoya. The former little Lolita had grown into an elegant young lady. Xiaoya, is your dad at home? Lu Chongqing asked. He's not, Uncle Lu. Is there something you need from my father? Gao Xiaoya asked, tilting her head. It's nothing urgent. Let him know when he gets back that I have something to discuss with him, Lu Chongqing said with a smile. All right, Uncle Lu. Won't you come in for a cup of tea? Gao Xiaoya asked politely. No, I have other matters to attend to, Lu Chongqing declined and waved his hand. Gao he only returned home after nightfall. As soon as he got home he came to inquire about Lu Changsheng's business. Brother Gao, you must have heard of Red Leaf Valley Market, haven't you? Lu Chongqing asked. Of course, it's the marketplace established by your Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain, the Yu family from Bai Lake Mountain, the Wugong Ridge Xing family and the 100 Birds Lake Bai family, Gao he responded, nodding his head. As a talisman master he also had his own information channels. Therefore he was aware of the annihilation of Red Leaf Valley and the subsequent transformation into a marketplace by the 4 major families. I am planning to open a talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley Market and wanted to ask if you're interested in coming over as the resident talisman master. Lu Chongqing got straight to the point. Although he intended to open a spiritual talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley, having managed a talisman shop in 9 Dragons Market for so many years, he knew that it was difficult to run a shop alone. Especially in the initial stages, there are many tasks that require attention. He alone would definitely be overwhelmed. So he would undoubtedly need to hire help. Having known Gao He for many years, Lu Chongqing was aware that aside from his occasional indulgences and pleasures, his character was reliable. A reliable person indeed. So Lu Chongqing thought of hiring Gao He to manage the shop for him. The position of the resident talisman master? Gao He heard this and didn't immediately answer, showing a contemplative expression. He was content with living a stable life. With no ambitious aspirations, he only wished to raise his daughter well and live out his life in peace. Currently a resident talisman master at a spiritual talisman shop in 9 Dragons Market, his life was very stable. Heading to Red Leaf Valley Market would surely be less secure than here. If you are willing, Brother Gao, you only need to manage the shop, create some talismans and occasionally mentor apprentices. I will mostly stay out of the shop's affairs. In terms of salary, it will be increased by 50% based on your current rate, and additionally in Red Leaf Valley Market, I have a second-order cave mansion with a spirit vein, which I can rent to you at a base price. This will also greatly improve your and Xiaoya's cultivation, Lu Chongqing continued. Since he was looking to recruit someone, he had to offer a price that was enticing enough. Otherwise, why would someone agree to work for him? With you putting it this way, Brother Lu, I don't have any reason to refuse, Gao he said with a beaming smile that made his face even more prosperous. Just the 50% increase in salary was tempting to him. Adding on the second-order cave mansion, he had no reason to refuse at all. For ordinary loose cultivators, aside from joining a force, they generally had no means of securing a second-order mansion. Chapter 267. Uncle returned. Alright, let's settle it like this. The Red Leaf Valley Market will be open in a few more months, and I'll notify Gao He then. Seeing the other party agree, Lu Chongqing also nodded. Okay, no problem. Gao He nodded in agreement. Gao He, how are you doing with superior grade talismans now? Lu Chongqing inquired. Gao He had also become a superior grade talisman master. But the specifics he wasn't too clear on. Although he had chatted with Gao He about talismans over the years, it was not exactly frequent. I have about a 50% success rate with golden light barrier talismans. As for nectar talismans, only a 30% success rate, and for escape talismans merely 10%. Gao He shook his head and sighed. Hearing this, Lu Chongqing immediately spoke out, discussing and offering guidance to Gao He about talismans. After all, the man was considered his own family's resident talisman master. So, spending some time guiding him was not a big deal. Additionally, by doing this, it allowed Gao He to serve him better. 3 months flew by in a blink. During this time, the fourth elder also learned of Lu Changsheng's intention to open a talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley. She didn't say much about it but instead supported Lu Changsheng's idea. After all, with his talisman-making skill, it would indeed be a pity to rent out the shop. She soon arranged for another talisman master to preside over the spiritual talisman shop in 9 Dragons Market. This allowed Lu Chongqing to stop going there and return to Qingzhou Mountain to rest. Qingzhou Valley inside the practice room. Lu Chongqing sat cross-legged with hands positioned towards the heavens, cultivating. 7 sharp sword chi swirled around him gracefully, making his skin feel cold. Huff. It's almost 3 to 4 months away from the 9th level energy refinement. Lu Chongqing exhaled lightly, concluding today's routine cultivation. He could clearly feel that his spiritual power was likely to reach perfection in a few months, at which point he could challenge the 9th level energy refinement. For him, advancing from the 8th to the 9th level was not an issue. The process was as natural as the flow of water. Leaving the practice room, Lu Chongqing went to his study to draw talismans as usual. After creating 1 supreme talisman and 2 superior-grade talismans, Lu Chongqing went to the courtyard to spend time with his wives and children. Lu Qingshan and Lu Qingzhu could now walk. Lu Qingshan, while possessing a spiritual body, seemed no different from any normal child. If anything, he was just more lively and active. This made Lu Chongqing secretly wonder if his son would inherit his mother's personality as he grew up. If he were to become like the second miss in temperament, he would probably bring a fair amount of trouble for his father. At that moment, Lu Chongqing received a message. The Red Leaf Valley Market was going to open in 10 days. 10 days. Upon hearing this message, Lu Chongqing nodded slightly. He sent letters to inform Hong Yi and Gao He about the news. He planned to go there once the Red Leaf Market opened. Although the marketplace would not attract many cultivators when it just opened, and it would need some time before the traffic picked up, opening a shop required advance arrangement and preparation. Upon a solemn, hallowed, and eerie high platform. The platform was surrounded by golden flagpoles. The black flags flying from the poles were embroidered with various vivid and lifelike demons. Now the flags flapped loudly, turning into billowing demonic chi, which caused visions of terrifying demons to emerge. At that moment, the white-haired young man sitting cross-legged on the platform suddenly opened his stunning eyes. They were dark and profound, with a crescent lotus pattern surfacing at his brow. The crescent lotus was blood-red, exuding an evil charm, and wrapped him in a powerful and boundless aura, like a ferocious tiger or dragon. Ketsukadu Sami Prajnaparamita Sami, Ketsukadu Prajnaparamita Sami. The white-haired young man abruptly voiced a deep and mysterious chant. The low resonating sound summoned a blood-colored figure with 3 heads and 6 arms behind him to slowly take shape. This blood-colored figure also seemed to chant, causing the voice to grow increasingly eerie and tremendous. It sounded as if countless voices blended together, causing the platform to tremble continuously as the flag's demons submitted to the blood figure with 3 heads and 6 arms. Not bad, befitting my disciple. You have not disappointed me. As he spoke, a youth in a black robe with aged eyes and a sinisterly handsome face appeared on the platform. He looked down at the white-haired young man, smiling satisfactorily as he clapped his hands. You once promised me that if I were to establish the Demon Dao Foundation, you would let me return once. Chu Chang'e looked toward the youth before him with a detached expression, his voice somewhat husky. As your master, I will not break my promise. The black-robed youth laughed softly, then called out, Hey Chiu. After a short while, a surge of chi that resembled a black serpent came rolling in. It transformed into a muscular man in black armor, his body covered in black demonic patterns, his features deep with evil intent. Hey Chiu pays his respects to the ancestor master. The bald man's demonic patterns seemed to move like little serpents, imposing a terrifying sensation. However, upon seeing the black-robed youth, he knelt down with a devout salute as if on a pilgrimage. You will accompany the young master to Jiang country. The black-robed youth stated indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure gradually faded away into nothingness. Young master, when do you plan to embark for Jiang country? The bald man, seeing the youth vanish, immediately turned to Chu Chang'e on the platform, an ingratiating smile spreading across his face. At odds with his ghastly appearance, the smile created a jarring contrast. Jiang country. Chu Chang'e paused slightly, his eyes flickering with an unusual light. His husky voice then declared, Now. Chapter 268. Advanced Draw Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. _1 10 days later. Red Leaf Valley Market. After its reconstruction into a marketplace, Red Leaf Valley still cultivated its mountains of red leaves and spiritual fields. Because the market had just opened, it was quite desolate. There were only people from the 4 major families and a few other forces. Lu Chongxing and Lu Miaoge strolled through the market, familiarizing themselves with the situation. Although the mountains were still covered with red leaves, the interior layout had been reorganized, completely different from its original appearance. The planned layout bore some resemblance to the 9 Dragons market. It was divided into 4 areas: east, west, south, and north, designated for residential and commercial use respectively. Shops used by the major families were basically located in the best spots within the commercial area. The location of Lu Changsheng's shop wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. On the commercial street. When purchasing the shop from Hong Yi, Lu Chongxing had also become aware of its price. It was worth roughly 3,000 spirit stones. In a few years, maybe even a few decades, once the market's foot traffic increased, its value could potentially rise substantially. As for Hong Yi's shop, its location was quite ordinary. It was situated on a rather secluded street. One reason was that only shops at this level were still available for external sale. Another was that the Rui Marquis mansion had limited financial resources. They could at most bring out 1,800 spirit stones. While wandering with Lu Miaoge, Lu Chongxing received a transmission from Gao He. "Sister Miaoge, I have something to take care of, I need to go over there," Lu Chongxing said to Lu Miaoge. Go ahead." Lu Miaoge replied, her white dress and gentle demeanor giving her an air of serenity. Suddenly, Lu Chongxing went to meet Gao He at the market entrance and brought him to his own shop. This shop wasn't big, barely 200 square meters in size, with a 3-story structure. "Brother Gao, this shop will be in your care from now on," Lu Chongxing said to Gao He. "For now, I can supply 3 supreme talismans and some superior-grade talismans every month. As for stock and inventory," Lu Chongxing explained the shop's essentials to Gao He. Having spent many years in the 9 Dragons market, his experiences hadn't been in vain. He was quite familiar with the operations of a spirit talisman shop. "Brother Lu, this shop isn't owned by the Lu family, it's yours?" Gao He asked in astonishment after hearing Lu Changsheng's words. He had originally thought that Lu Chongxing invited him to Red Leaf Valley Market to act as the resident talisman master on behalf of the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain. To his surprise, Lu Chongxing had opened his own shop. This left him both astonished and envious. Many loose cultivators spend their entire lives in the cultivation world and still may not be able to afford a residence in a marketplace. Most can only choose to return to the secular world to settle down. Even for him, an advanced-level talisman master, buying property in a larger market wasn't easy. A shop like Lu Changsheng's could support 3 generations if Red Leaf Market didn't run into trouble, and that wasn't an exaggeration. That's right, the Lu family also has a shop here," Lu Chongxing chuckled. "However, this shop isn't owned by the Lus, it's my personal business. Therefore, I won't have much time to manage it, which is why I requested your assistance," he continued, not hiding the truth. He planned to spend his time cultivating in Qingzhou Mountain like the 4th elder, accompanying his wife and children. After completing the talisman-making tasks for the Lu family each month and supplying the spiritual talisman shop, he would come to check on the shop and see Lu Miaoge. "All right, rest assured, boss," Gao He said without further questions, giving a respectful bow. After taking a look at the shop and glancing at Lu Chongxing, he added, "But this shop needs a name. Why don't you choose one, boss? Since it sells talismans, let's just call it Peace Talisman Hall," Lu Chongxing suggested after some thought, coming up with a rather uninspired name. Gao He's mouth twitched slightly. Such shop names were basically cliché. But that's how it was for most shops except for some major families and powers. They could only build a reputation by slowly accumulating good reviews and growing the business. Subsequently, Gao He discussed the initial preparations for the spirit talisman shop with Lu Chongxing. Having been briefed on this by Lu Chongxing, he had made ready preparations. Lu Chongxing knew that Gao He had put in the effort when he heard this. He had even thought that if it didn't work out, he could ask the Lu family for support. After all, it would be foolish not to use resources that were readily available. Suddenly, Lu Chongxing also discussed the second-order cave mansion with Gao He. He had seen the mansion. It wasn't big, just 100 square meters. But for rent, it could fetch 80 to 90 spirit stones a year. Once the foot traffic increased, he estimated it could be rented out for 100 spirit stones. Lu Chongxing then rented it to Gao He for a base price of 80 spirit stones per year. Thank you, boss. Gao He gratefully accepted the offer. He planned to clear a path in the Nine Dragons market and at the same time, bring over his daughter, Gao Xiaoya. After chatting for a while, Lu Chongxing left and went to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. This shop's layout and decorations were similar to those in the Nine Dragons market's Lu family spiritual talisman shop, only larger. Chongxing, you've finished your business? Lu Miaoge came forward as soon as she knew Lu Chongxing had arrived. Apart from being at home, she still maintained a sense of grace and inaccessibility when outside. Yes, I've finished, Lu Chongxing said, nodding with a smile. He shared the details of his discussion with Gao He with Lu Miaoge. This is what being husband and wife was like. It wasn't every day that there were fresh and interesting stories to share. Often, much of the time was spent talking about the little things happening around them. The night deepened. Red Leaf Valley was already quiet, now enveloped in silence. Apart from the guards tasked with patrolling, most had entered the realm of dreams. On the third floor of the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. Inside the simple bedroom, the bed's curtains hung down. The candlelight flickered gently as if a full moon had sunk into the water, waves gently lapping. After the deed. Sister Miaoge, how long do you need to break through to the 9th level of energy refinement? Chapter 269. Advanced Draw Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. Lu Chongxing embraced the warm, soft jade and asked softly, due to the previous assassination attempt and because of her pregnancy and childbirth, Lu Miaoge had only broken through to the 8th level of energy refinement 3 months ago. It should take about 5 or 6 years. Lu Miaoge was still immersed in the afterglow of her cultivation session, her cheeks flushed with a beauty that seemed beyond compare. 5 to 6 years. Lu Chongxing heard this and nodded slightly. He understood that at Lu Miaoge's current pace of cultivation, waiting for her to reach perfection in energy refinement and then to attempt foundation establishment would likely take more than a decade. In more than 10 years by then maybe I could get a genuine foundation establishment elixir. Moreover, after I reach foundation establishment I can consider passing on the split sword technique, Lu Chongxing thought to himself. Now that Lu Miaoge was his wife, the mother of his children, he naturally paid more attention to her cultivation and foundation establishment. It's nothing, I was just asking. I want to help you with your cultivation to reach foundation establishment sooner. Lu Chongxing whispered to the beauty before him. Then, capturing her tender lips, they continued their cultivation. Among all his wives and concubines, only Lu Miaoge, who was also at the 8th level of energy refinement, produced the best results when dual cultivating with him. A single session of dual cultivation was almost equivalent to half a month of solitary cultivation. Lu Miaoge's cheeks were flushed, her brows gently curved, her eyes gleaming like water, her teeth biting down on her cherry lips. After spending half a month with Lu Miaoge in Red Leaf Valley Market, Lu Chongxing returned to Qingzhou Mountain. The distance between Red Leaf Valley and Qingzhou Mountain made his travels much more convenient. On the 3rd day after returning to Qingzhou Mountain, the maid Jiang Luiyue gave birth to a child. This child did not possess a spiritual root, but at the moment of the child's birth, a system prompt arrived as expected. Congratulations, host. The number of your offspring has reached 100. You are awarded 1 advanced lottery draw. Advanced lottery? Lu Chongxing raised his eyebrows upon hearing this. Previously, when he had 50 children, he received a designated draw, which allowed him to choose any category for the draw. He hadn't expected that reaching 100 children would warrant an advanced lottery draw. If the regular lottery is this powerful, won't the advanced lottery skyrocket? At this moment, Lu Chongxing couldn't help but feel excited and anticipatory. He immediately rushed to his study to start the lottery draw. System, I want to draw the lottery. Lu Chongxing thought to himself. Instantly, a deep red virtual lottery wheel appeared. It was different from the previous lottery wheels. This wheel had only 4 sections: Cultivation Technique Classics, Elixirs, Heaven and Earth Treasures and Spiritual Pet Treasures. The regular lottery can draw orthodox level cultivation techniques. Could the Cultivation Technique Classics drawn from the advanced lottery be above the orthodox level? And if the pets from the regular lottery are heavenly grade bloodline pets, wouldn't the advanced lottery possibly give true spirit beast cubs? Lu Chongxing looked at the advanced lottery wheel in front of him and couldn't help but look forward to it. That feeling of anxious anticipation for the lottery had arisen again. Curious about what reward he would receive this time. System: draw the lottery. Lu Chongqing didn't think too much, took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. With a mental shift, the brilliant gold light appeared on the advanced lottery wheel and began to spin rapidly. After 5 seconds, the light gradually slowed. Finally, with Lu Changsheng's heart pounding, the gold light settled on the spiritual pet treasure section. Ding! Congratulations, host, for obtaining a heavenly spiritual treasure. 9 treasure jade rui. The reward has been distributed to the system space. The host can check it at any time. A green rui image, inlaid with what looked like 9 stars, emerged from the lottery wheel accompanied by a system notification tone. Heavenly spiritual treasure? 9 treasure jade rui? Lu Chongqing, seeing the reward he obtained, was immediately delighted. He hadn't imagined that he would draw a heavenly spiritual treasure. The treasures used by cultivators are categorized from low to high as magic artifact, spiritual artifact, magical treasure, spiritual treasure, and heavenly spiritual treasure. Heavenly spiritual treasure, the supreme treasure that only nascent divine cultivators could wield and use. It was rumored that treasures of this level had their own artifact spirits, with autonomous consciousness and the ability to think. Unexpectedly, through the advanced lottery, he had drawn a treasure of this level. If a heavenly spiritual treasure has an artifact spirit, it should automatically bond with its master just like a pet does. I wonder if the grand old artifact spirit can give me a boost, Lu Chongqing thought hopefully to himself. Then he turned his attention to the heavenly spiritual treasure in the system space. Spiritual treasure, 9 treasure jade rui, grade, heavenly spiritual treasure. Description: before the demise of the divine lord of 9 heavens, he gathered the essence of all heavenly stars, infused it into the myriad spirits jade, and finally refined it with his 9 great divine abilities. It contains 9 great divine abilities, mysterious and unfathomable, and possesses immense power. Only a person with great magical power can activate it. So the grade is just heavenly spiritual treasure without detailed grades? Lu Chongqing looked at the information of the treasure and felt surprised. This made him recall something he read in an ancient tome. A heavenly spiritual treasure is fundamentally superior to even the finest of the supreme spiritual treasures. Therefore, it is beyond the categorizations of low, middle, high, and supreme. Regardless of whether it's categorized or not, the 4 words heavenly spiritual treasure are enough. Lu Chongqing didn't dwell too much on this point. With a mental spirit, he extracted the heavenly spiritual treasure from the system space. Immediately, a beautifully crafted, glossy jade rui about the size of a baby's arm appeared. The glossy jade rui shimmered with light, glimmering like galaxies, flowing beauty beyond words. 9 stars of crimson, blood red, golden yellow, sky blue, deep blue, purple, black, dark black, and pure white were inlaid on it, so exquisite that they seemed to emit their own profound mysteries. Chapter 268. Advanced Draw Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. No artifact spirit? Having just extracted the 9 treasure jade rui, Lu Chongqing had already gleaned a basic understanding of the information about this high-level spiritual treasure. This high-level spiritual treasure was indeed formidable. The 9 treasure jade rui contained 9 great divine abilities, known as the 9 treasures. The first treasure enhanced one's physical strength. The second treasure amplified mana and divine skills. The third treasure boosted the soul and divine sense. The fourth treasure increased speed, enabling one to ride the wind with incredible swiftness. The fifth treasure held healing divine light, repairing the physical body and treating the primordial spirit. The sixth treasure was protective divine light, shielding one from all methods of attack with its divine light. The seventh treasure was sealing divine light, capable of sealing another's mana or one's own aura. The eighth treasure was unsealing divine light, able to break through all sorts of formations and restrictions with a sweep of its light. The ninth treasure was 9-colored disaster light, capable of obliterating everything on its path. As for the first 4 enhancements like vigor, mana, soul, and speed, they could be amplified up to 10 times. While the fifth treasure's healing power could not bring the dead back to life, as long as there was a breath of life, it could generally save and prolong one's life. It could even consume one's origin source to instantly recover from all injuries. With just these effects, the 9 treasure jade rui could be considered a truly precious treasure. Not to mention the latter 4 divine lights, each an unparalleled divine skill. However, this high-level spiritual treasure did not possess an artifact spirit as Lu Chongqing had imagined. According to the system introduction, this high-level spiritual treasure was at the stage where it had just been refined by the God of the 9 heavens, still yet to pass through the heavenly tribulation and nourish an artifact spirit to form an autonomous consciousness. If one had to categorize it, it could only be considered as an almost high-level spiritual treasure. Without an artifact spirit, this high-level spiritual treasure is just a powerful magical treasure to me. Lu Chongqing shook his head and said. It was not too disappointing for him. After all, the system's rewards were too advanced for him at this point, incapable of being transformed into strength quickly. This 9 treasure jade rui was just even more advanced. To him, its essence was about the same as the black dragon magical bead. Luckily, I have the 100 refinements treasure body art. Otherwise, having such a heavy treasure, I could only watch and let it gather dust. Lu Chongqing let out a breath. He possessed the 100 refinements treasure body art. With this art he could utilize any magical treasure or spiritual treasure for cultivation, incorporating them into his body to enhance the speed of his 100 refinements treasure body art's cultivation. With the aid of the middle-grade black dragon magical bead, his treasure body technique advanced with incredible speed. In about another year he could break through to the 3rd level. If he refined a high-level spiritual treasure into his body, his 100 refinements treasure body art's cultivation speed would likely skyrocket. Moreover, once the treasure body technique is cultivated to the 5th level, the treasure bone technique can melt the magical treasure into a life-bound treasure bone. Once a life-bound treasure bone is formed, one can wield the magical treasure's divine effects without the need for the black dragon magical bead's origin nurturing, unlike talisman treasures that have limited power and need to be nurtured again after each use. If I were to melt this 9 treasure jade rui into a life-bound treasure bone, then I'd command the 9 great divine abilities of the 9 treasure jade rui. At this moment, Lu Chongqing murmured in his heart, thinking about the treasure bone technique in the 100 refinements treasure body art. The current treasure bone technique could only consume a magical treasure's origin to nurture the bones, thereby exerting part of the magical treasure's power, but each time the power was drained, it would need to be nurtured again. But once the 100 refinements treasure body art was cultivated to the 5th level, and the physical body comparable to a spiritual artifact, he could then melt a magical treasure or spiritual treasure with the skull, sternum, spine, and limbs, the 7 treasure bones, into a life-bound treasure bone. Once the life-bound treasure bone was formed, the magical treasure and treasure bone would meld into one. From then on, the magical treasure's divine effects would become the cultivator's life-bound divine abilities, innate divine abilities. With the system by his side, ordinary magical treasures, which had average power and limited potential, Lu Chongqing was not too willing to melt them into life-bound treasure bones. Because once a magical treasure is cultivated into a life-bound treasure bone, that particular life-bound treasure bone can no longer assist in cultivation, nor can it refine other magical treasures into the body. Therefore, one must be extremely cautious with the 7 life-bound treasure bones of the treasure body technique. Otherwise, if one casually melds 7 life-bound treasure bones and can no longer refine magical treasures to assist in cultivation in the future, then the 100 refinements treasure body technique would become practically useless for Lu Chongqing. But this 9 treasure jade rui was different. Its grade was that of a high-level spiritual treasure, with an extremely high potential, and contained 9 great divine abilities. Once he mastered these 9 divine abilities, his strength would receive a comprehensive boost. It's absolutely worth melting it into a life-bound treasure bone. However, my 100 refinements treasure body art is only at the 2nd level. Even with the help of magical treasures for cultivation, it will take a long time to break through to the 5th level. Lu Chongqing shook his head and exhaled a long breath, not thinking about such long-term matters. Soon after, he sat cross-legged, wanting to see how long it would take for the 100 refinements treasure body art to refine this high-level spiritual treasure. Even the creators of this cultivation technique from 100 Creation Mountain had never tried to use the Qi refinement realm to refine a high-level spiritual treasure. Having magical treasures refined into the body at the Qi refinement realm, which could then be used to assist in cultivation, was already remarkable. How could a high-level spiritual treasure possibly be used for such refinement? In Zhoushan Mansion City, Chu Chang'e walked through the city. He was dressed in a black wide-sleeved robe. His normally white hair had been dyed black and was held up with a hairpin. With a stern face that, besides seeming quiet and reticent, didn't appear much different from an ordinary person. But he was followed by a tall and muscular bald man in black attire. The bald man radiated a compelling majesty, inspiring fear and trembling in those who looked upon him, deterring anyone from getting too close. Xianxia stopped walking, staring at the dazzling facade of the Chu residence in front of him, taken aback and showing a look of astonishment. Chapter 269. Advanced Draw Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. For he clearly remembered that the last time he returned home, his house was desolate and dilapidated, overgrown with weeds. How had it now returned to the appearance he remembered in his memories? Could it be the scene I saw before? Was it all an illusion? In fact, my parents, they might not be dead. Xianxia's heart skipped a beat. The heart that had long been deadened was now roiling with emotion, and tears almost spilled out. But he didn't step forward to knock on the door. With his foundation establishment Cultivation, he was able to clearly sense that within the residence, there was only one elderly person. There were no other signs of life. So he knew that the derelict state of the Chu residence he had seen before was not any illusion. The residence before his eyes must have been rebuilt for some reason. At this moment, the elder inside the Chu residence, seeing Xianxia standing at the door, couldn't help but ask, "Young sir, do you need something? I thought the Chu residence had been raided by bandits." After a moment of silence, Xianxia replied with a somewhat hoarse voice. "Yes, the Chu family, I don't know what sins we had committed. 10 years ago we were raided by bandits and the courtyard was left desolate, but then last year." The elder spoke with a hint of melancholy. The old man was of an advanced age, rambling on, but he helped Xianxia understand the situation. He learned that a man and a woman had come to erect a tombstone for his parents and had renovated the residence. Zhenzhen is still alive. Xianxia immediately knew that the woman the elder spoke of was his sister, Zhenzhen. Knowing that his sister was still alive, his body couldn't help but tremble. But he soon calmed down again, nodded and left with the bald man. They had not gone far before the two transformed into an escape light, concealing their forms and entering the courtyard of the Chu residence. Looking at the courtyard, which closely resembled the one from his past yet lacked the vibrancy of life, Xianxia seemed somewhat bewildered as he walked around. Then in the back courtyard he saw the tombstones and spirit hall. Father Chu Qingsong, Mother Zhao's tomb. Son-in-law Lu Chongxing, daughter Chu Zhenzhen in tribute. Zhenzhen is married? Xianxia looked at the tombstone before him. The image of his sister Chu Zhenzhen as he remembered her, surfaced in his mind. Knowing that his sister was still alive and now married, he felt joy and relief but also a complex mix of emotions. Time really does fly. It's good that she's married. With Zhenzhen's temperament, it would be difficult for her to be alone. I wonder how Zhenzhen is doing these days. Xianxia stared at the tombstone before him, lost in thought, his expression extremely complex. "Young master, if you have living relatives you wish to see, I have a secret technique that can trace them through your bloodline," said the man in black armor next to him, attempting to please him. His obsequious demeanor instantly swept away any semblance of his authoritative presence. "Forget it, given my current situation, it's better not to disturb her life," Xianxia said, gently shaking his head. He was acutely aware that he had embarked on a perilous path, one far different from that of ordinary people. If he were to visit his sister, it might disrupt her life. Moreover, he couldn't stay for long on this visit back home. Xianxia then knelt before the tombstone, went to the spirit hall and offered incense and tribute. "Still, I should go have a look as long as I don't disturb his life," he sighed as he prepared to leave the Chu residence to investigate the true events of the Chu family's past. He still couldn't let go of his sister in his heart. He decided to check on how his sister Zhenzhen was doing these days. "What should I do?" Xianxia asked, looking toward the man in black armor beside him. "Young master, you only need to give me a drop of your blood, and I can use it to trace the bloodline and perform the secret technique," the man in black armor said. Upon hearing this, Xianxia promptly forced out a drop of bright, clear, scarlet blood. Although in the demon path, there were many techniques that used another's blood to perform spells, even to attack stealthily. But he harbored no such worries. Knowing that his master had certain intentions for him, his life was no longer in his own hands. The man in black armor took the blood and formed hand gestures, turning the blood into a miniature dark red snake. Young master, this blood-guiding snake will automatically seek out those related to you by blood, said the man in black armor. Let's go, Xianxia said indifferently, nodding his head as he watched the blood-guiding snake, and he disappeared with the man in black armor from the courtyard. 7 days later. Qingzhou Mountain. Xinzhen has also stepped onto the path of cultivation? Xianxia and the man in black armor followed the blood-colored snake and arrived outside Qingzhou Mountain. He immediately discerned that Qingzhou Mountain was a cultivation family's residence. He had not expected that his sister would come to the residence of a cultivation family and walk the path of a cultivator. Young master, I sensed just now that this is but a small family. Inside is only one foundation establishment cultivator, said the man in black armor. Young master, would you like to enter directly or sneak in? He asked, his voice still carrying a fawning tone. Chapter 270. Breakthrough in Cultivation Level Spiritual Root Promotion. _1 Xianxia and the man in black armor walked through Qingzhou Mountain. The two seemed invisible, unperceived by the Lu family's watching disciples. Following the blood-guiding snake, Xianxia arrived at White Deer Mountain Villa. He immediately saw a group of the Lu family's people, picking up their children from school. From the crowd he instantly spotted a woman in her 20s, with a gentle and beautiful face, wearing a pink and white dress. The woman was holding a child, walking alongside a man in his 20s wearing a blue robe. There were also 8 or 9 children following them, chatting and laughing. Even though it had been 10 years since they last met, Xianxia recognized at a glance that this woman in the pink and white dress, with her gentle and dazzling face, was his own sister, Xinzhen. Xinzhen. He called out in his heart. But he didn't make a sound, fearing to disturb her peace. Who would have thought the once little girl has now become a mother? Xianxia watched Xinzhen holding a child, chatting and laughing with the man, and talking gently with the children nearby, his deep, silent eyes revealing a mix of happiness, relief and heaviness, as well as timidity and confusion. He could tell that his sister was doing well here. Not only did her face carry a joyful and blissful expression, but she had also set foot on the path of cultivation. However, her cultivation level was somewhat low, only at the 4th level energy refinement. Then his gaze shifted to Lu Chongxing beside her. He knew this must be his brother-in-law. As for his first impression of his brother-in-law, he found him quite favorable. Firstly, because he erected a monument for their parents and renovated the 2 residents. Furthermore, his appearance was handsome, matching his sister well. While speaking with his sister and the children, his demeanor was gentle, showing the attitude of a husband and father. He took a glance at Lu Changsheng's cultivation level. He found that he couldn't discern Lu Changsheng's cultivation level at all. He did not care much about this. After all, the cultivation world had many techniques and treasures to conceal one's cultivation level and spiritual power. Having such a treasure indicated that his brother-in-law must hold a decent status and identity within the family. He didn't use any spells to probe either, lest Lu Chongxing sense his presence. Are all these children Zenshians? Xianxia turned his gaze toward the groups of children beside the couple, his heart skipping a beat. The children were mostly 5 or 6 years old, the oldest no more than 8 or 9. He remembered that it had only been a total of 10 years since he left home. In 10 years his sister couldn't possibly have so many children, could she? The next moment he looked carefully. He could feel a blood connection only with the infant Xinzhen was holding, as well as with an 8 or 9-year-old boy and a 6 or 7-year-old girl, which made him feel a kinship as their uncle. He knew only these 3 were his sister's children. Seeing there were only 3, he nodded slightly. If she had given birth to 10 children in 10 years, he feared he might have had thoughts of drawing a sword. Only this child has a spiritual root, huh? Xianxia's eyes fell on the 3 children to whom he felt related by blood, focusing on Lu Qianzhen. Xinzhen had given birth to 4 children. Among them, the first child, Lu Qianzhen, and the third child, Lu Caizhen, possessed a spiritual root. However, Lu Caizhen was still not of schooling age and was playing at home. I wonder what kind of spiritual root this child has. Xianxia thought to himself. Throughout these years, although he had been constantly forced to cultivate in the darkness, he had also acquired a general understanding of the cultivation world. He knew that compared to the secular world, the cultivation world was even more brutal. A stark world of survival of the fittest, selection of the superior and elimination of the inferior. If his nephew's spiritual route was mediocre, he would face many hardships when he began cultivating as he grew up. Sigh. Xianxia sighed. His heart had become numb and silent over the years. But at that moment he couldn't help feeling sentimental. He was not only worried about his sister's life but also, by extension, concerned about his nephew's situation. He shook his head slightly, choosing not to dwell further on these thoughts. Aware of his current situation, how could he afford to care about others? Watching Zhou Xian and others chat and laugh as they gradually moved away, he closed his eyes. Let's go. Xianxia reopened his eyes, determination shining within them. He turned and walked toward the exit of Qingzhou Mountain. Now that he had seen his sister and knew she was living well, he felt at ease. He was acutely aware of his current circumstances. If he had too much contact with his sister, he would only bring harm upon her. What he needed to do now was to live well, strive to survive and improve himself, until he possessed the strength to control his own destiny. No matter how dangerous the future might be, whether it was fortune or calamity, this was his only choice, his only path. Just as his master had said. In this world only one's own strength is eternal. A breeze blew through, rustling the bamboo, causing a sense of utmost comfort and peace. Zhou Xian, who was talking to Lu Chongqing, seemed to sense something. She suddenly turned her head, looking in the direction of Xianxia. But there was nothing there. Xian, what's the matter? Lu Chongqing asked Zhou Xian. Nothing. Zhou Xian gently shook her head, dismissing the indistinct feeling. Lu Chongqing was unaware of Zhou Xian's visit. His daily life continued as usual, cultivating, making talismans and spending time with his wife and children. There was just one more thing he did, refining the 9-treasure jade ruby. Indeed, the 9-treasure jade ruby, a heaven-reaching spiritual treasure, proved to be 100 times harder to refine than the black dragon magical bead had been. Even with the profound origin bead in his possession and spending 1 or 2 hours a day on its refinement, it would probably take 3 to 5 years. Although this period was long, he was very much looking forward to the effects of fully refining the 9-treasure jade ruby and integrating it into his body. Chapter 271. Breakthrough in Cultivation Level, Spiritual Root Promotion. Before one realized, 2 months had gone by. Lu Chongqing, I think I'm pregnant again. That day Lu Miaohuan ran over and said to Lu Chongqing. Initially she had said she would only have 1 child, yet now, barely a year after the first child's birth, she was pregnant again. She revealed a look of helplessness and frustration. Did you forget to force it out using your spiritual power? Lu Chongqing was slightly taken aback upon hearing the words of the second mistress, before immediately responding. Even if not for the purpose of having children, the two of them often cultivated together. In such cases, if he did not control himself and Lu Miaohuan forgot to force it out, there was a not-so-small chance of getting pregnant. What should I do then? Lu Miaohuan pouted her red lips and spoke somewhat innocently. If you're pregnant, then let's have it. This will be the last one, Lu Chongqing said softly, gently stroking her head with a tender expression. Emichung. Lu Miaohuan nodded heavily. After spending some quality time accompanying the second mistress, Lu Chongqing saw that it was already the end of the month. He then left the house and rode the Iron Feather Eagle to the Red Leaf Valley market. By now Red Leaf Valley had been open for over 3 months. Yet the popularity was still average and the streets looked desolate. In such a desolate state, the business of his Peace Talisman Hall was also very bleak. If it were not for the shop being his own with the current situation, it would be operating at a loss. After all, not only was the foot traffic low. At this stage, all the major shops were selling at promotional prices of 60 to 70% off for the sake of reputation and business, leaving hardly any profit margin. Lu Chongqing walked around his own shop and checked the monthly account book for income and expenditures. Sigh, after deducting all sorts of raw materials and labor costs, we've only made 31 spirit stones in profit. It's not even enough to pay the rent, we actually have to put in money. Fortunately, in a year or two the marketplace's foot traffic should gradually increase, and profits will recover somewhat. As Lu Chongqing looked at this month's accounts, he couldn't help but feel speechless. This made Gao He, who was nearby, somewhat uneasy. Although it's common for there to be no foot traffic when the market first opens, and businesses are promoting to capture the market, but for a shop on the main street to make just over 30 spirit stones in a month. It was indeed embarrassing for him as the talisman master and shopkeeper who presided over the shop. Lu Chongqing waved his hand and did not say much more. He knew this was normal, because Lu Maiage's spiritual talisman shop on the other side was the same. Due to its location and the franchise brand, their situation was slightly better than his. Shortly after, Lu Chongqing visited the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop at Qingzhou, where he normally cultivated with his wife, Lu Miaoge, to enhance their bond and cultivation level. 1 month later, inside the Qingzhou mountain practice room, Lu Chongqing was sitting in meditation, practicing the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. Suddenly, within the spiritual power sea of his dantian, the energy surged tumultuously. Sword qi encircled him, sharp and vigorous, as dust scattered and an indistinct spiritual pressure filled the air. 9th level qi refinement. Lu Chongqing opened his eyes and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. He was not overly surprised by this breakthrough. After all, cultivating the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, he had a rough idea of his own progress in cultivation. And such a breakthrough was natural for him, smooth and seamless. Lu Chongqing took a look inside at his 7-colored Dan lake and felt the changes after the breakthrough. The spiritual power inside his body had increased by almost 30%. As his cultivation level broke through, the profound origin bead floating above the Dan lake began to rotate slowly. This magical artifact, too, had its effects enhanced as Lu Chongqing's cultivation level advanced. Relying on the profound origin bead, could I now contend with an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator? Lu Chongqing pondered, feeling the spiritual power boosted by the profound origin bead. Based on what he had seen in Red Leaf Valley, he felt that his current strength would allow him to withstand a few moves against a foundation-building great cultivator. If he were to employ all his techniques, he might even have a chance at killing a foundation establishment great cultivator. However, Lu Chongqing merely entertained the thought without any real intention of pursuing it. Who in their right mind would seek out a fight with a foundation-building great cultivator? He vividly recalled Ancestor Chen's desperate self-destruction, wielding spiritual artifacts and heavenly thunder pearls. If not for absolute strength, both parties would end up wounded in a clash of spells. At this rate, I estimate that in 3 to 5 years, I will be ready to make a push for foundation establishment. With the foundation establishment spirit objects and foundation establishment elixir at my disposal, foundation establishment should be almost a certainty for me. Lu Chongqing briefly settled the restless spiritual power and stood up, stretching his limbs and waist. He pushed open the door and stepped out of the practice room. Because the breakthrough had taken a long time, it was now deep into the night. Lu Chongqing, looking at the moonlight, felt no urge for late-night moon-gazing or sentimental musings. He went to Lu Miao's room. Seeing that she had already fallen asleep, he lifted the blanket and got into bed. Holding the lady in his arms, he too gradually drifted off to sleep. 6 days later, Lu Chongqing's 102nd child was born. This child had a spiritual root. It was his 23rd child to possess a spiritual root. With the birth of this child, Lu Chongqing felt an indescribable, profound sensation coursing through him. He knew that his own spiritual root had ascended. It had advanced from a 6th grade spiritual root to a 5th grade spiritual root. Lu Chongqing was not surprised by this advancement of his spiritual root. Previously, he had sensed that his spiritual root was at the brink between the 6th and 5th grade. If another 6th grade spiritual root appeared, it might prompt an immediate promotion. It had been a while, and with the growth of his child's spiritual root along with the recent birth, the child probably had a 7th grade spiritual root. Thus, his spiritual root had naturally improved. System. Lu Chongqing silently called out in his mind. Name, Lu Chongqing. Status, son-in-law of the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain. Cultivation level, 9th level qi refinement. Chapter 272. Breakthrough in cultivation level, spiritual root promotion. Lifespan, 30/156. Talent, 5th grade spiritual root, Gingjin body constitution, medium grade spiritual body. Cultivation technique, 100 refinements treasure body art, 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture yin-yang harmony technique, immortal beauty technique. Spell, 7 luminaries sword glow, 7 luminaries sword shield, 7 luminaries sword escape. Items: 9 treasure jade Rui golden light brick talisman treasure, black dragon magical bead, book of malevolent. Curses and fates life substituting talisman profound origin bead 2nd rank puppet. Skills: talisman making 2nd rank, puppet 2nd rank. Spiritual pets: 9 netherhound peach blossom goo 6-winged golden silkworm. Offspring: 102 out of 107, a 5th grade spiritual root the same as Sister Maya's, another step closer to the heavenly spiritual root. Moreover, it also helps me a bit more with foundation establishment. Lu Chongqing looked at the spiritual root level on the system's interface and smiled. Looking at the talent column that listed the Gingjin body constitution. As time passed, he could feel that this Gingjin body constitution was also improving in effectiveness as his son, Lu Qingshan, grew up. Spiritual bodies should fully form along with physical development, probably around the age of 11 or 12, Lu Chongqing thought to himself. A question suddenly occurred to him. Now that he himself possessed the Gingjin body constitution. If he were to have another child with the Gingjin body constitution, what would happen? Could the Gingjin body constitution advance and become a high-grade spiritual body? And what if the next spiritual body was conflicting with the Gingjin body constitution? Could it cause a conflict of spiritual bodies and problems with his own body? Lu Changsheng's mind wandered with these thoughts. After a while, Lu Chongqing figured this was something he'd only know after the birth of his second spiritual body child. Looking at the system interface in front of him, Lu Chongqing saw his age. He suddenly remembered he had inadvertently turned 30. 30 years old 9th level energy refinement. This cultivation level in a cultivation family like Qingzhou Mountain would also be considered a genius. Lu Chongqing murmured to himself. Yet he wasn't overly proud of this. At this age, being at 9th level energy refinement might be considered genius in a family like Qingzhou Mountain, but within the immortal sex, it would only be considered average. However, he didn't mind this aspect. After all, his forte was having a solid foundation and being a late bloomer. Having this speed was already good enough. Not striving for the short term but aiming for lifelong achievements. Besides, starting from scratch as the son of a poor farmer with a 9th grade spiritual root and having a system, he was quite content with his achievements after relentless efforts over just 12 years. There's a saying, at 30 one should stand firm. Now with 7 wives, 11 concubines, 24 maids and 107 children, I guess I can say I've established something, right? Lu Chongqing suddenly thought to himself. Time flew by and half a year passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Lu Changsheng's spiritual root children increased by 2. Both of these children also possessed spiritual roots. This brought the total number of his offspring with spiritual roots to 25, earning him a chance to draw a prize. Unfortunately, his luck with the draw was not very good. He drew a 2nd-rank Spirit Slaughterer skill from the 100 cultivation skills. The Spirit Slaughterer skill allowed Lu Chongqing to skillfully handle most demon beast carcasses without causing waste or damage during skinning, deboning, tendon extraction and marrow retrieval. But for Lu Chongqing at the moment, this skill was quite superfluous and destined to be unused. After all, he had the skill of talisman making, which meant he didn't need to rely on the Spirit Slaughterer skill for a living. He never went out to hunt demon beasts for a living because he did not need to rely on selling their materials. However, among the 2 children that were born, the child of Xia Zhiyue possessed a 6th grade spiritual root. This delighted Lu Chongqing immensely. After all, among his more than 100 children, there were 25 with spiritual roots. But only Lu Qingshan had a middle grade spiritual root. The child of Xia Zhiyue was his 2nd child to have a 6th grade spiritual root. However, when Xia Zhiyue was pregnant with this child, Lu Chongqing did not let her consume her own origin source to nourish the fetus excessively. Otherwise, Lu Chongqing felt that Xia Zhiyue, who was in the energy refinement middle stage, could have given birth to a child with a 5th grade or even a 4th grade spiritual root. But with the precedent set by the mother of Xia Zhiyue, Lu Chongqing would not do such a thing. He could never bring himself to let a child's mother consume her origin source to the point of depletion and death for the sake of childbirth. He also planned not to let Xia Zhiyue have any more children in the short term and instead to let her rest and cultivate properly. He would wait until she reached the energy refinement late stage to discuss this matter. Even Lu Chongqing was thinking, if Xia Zhiyue broke through to the foundation establishment stage, could she rely on her spirit-nurturing physique to conceive a child with a high-grade spiritual root? There's about a month left until the day of the 10-year agreement. I wonder how Feiyu is doing. On this day, after Lu Chongqing completed his routine cultivation and talisman making, he remembered that there was about a month left until the 10-year agreement they had made. He was also curious about the current situation of Han Lin, Xianxia, and Zhao Qingqing, who were cultivating in the Immortal sects, curious about how they were doing after these 10 years, whether the gap was gradually widening. At the same time, he thought about Li Feiyu, who had been out adventuring for so long without any news, and wondered how he was faring. In the blink of an eye, another half-month passed by. Just as Lu Chongqing was preparing to go to the Rui County city for a gathering, he received a letter. It was a letter from Li Feiyu. In the letter, Li Feiyu first talked about his own situation, stating that all was well with him. Thanks to the talismans and spirit stones that Lu Chongqing had given him, he had also broken through to the 5th-level energy refinement. He was currently exploring a precursor's cave with others and was not sure he could rush back in time for the 10-year rendezvous. Therefore he had someone deliver the letter in advance. If he did not return in time, he asked Lu Chongqing not to worry or miss him. He also urged Lu Chongqing to inform Han Lin, Xiaoxia, and Zhao Qingqing about this. Alas, Feiyu has ultimately chosen this path. Lu Chongqing sighed lightly as he read the letter. He had previously guessed that Li Feiyu, by venturing out, would eventually follow a path similar to Xiaolong's, obtaining resources by hunting demon beasts, exploring precursors' caves and secret realms. Or rather, this was the only way for most loose cultivators to stand out and seize the chance for foundation establishment. But such endeavors came with great risks. After all, it was akin to risking one's life at every turn, and a single encounter with danger or mishap could result in death and a forgotten grave in the wilderness. However, there was nothing Lu Chongqing could do to dissuade this. Not everyone can live like him, safely marrying wives and concubines and having children, with the expectation of the great Tao unfolding before them. Nevertheless, Lu Chongqing felt that the reason Li Feiyu might not come to the rendezvous was not just because he was held up by matters but also because the gap among the 6 of them had grown too vast. Li Feiyu was once promising in his youth. But 10 years ago among the 6, it was Li Feiyu who was in the worst situation. Now 10 years later, Li Feiyu had still spent most of his time in vain. How could his proud nature endure that? Alas, Lu Chongqing sighed again, hoping that Li Feiyu was safe and well. Flames appeared in his hand and he burned the letter to ashes. After informing his wives and concubines, he mounted the iron feather eagle and set off towards Rui County City. Chapter 273, Xiaoxia's request under for 1 Rui County City. Inside the Lu family estate Wanxiang Garden. Huff, huff, huff. In the picturesque garden with its cobblestone paths, several martial masters were leading a group of children in martial arts practice, a morning exercise routine. Although these children were young, their movements were extremely agile as they swung their fists and kicked their feet. Wherever there was an issue, the nearby martial masters would immediately correct them, meticulous in every detail. A few of the children, around 10 years old, created gusts of wind with their fists and feet as they moved, signs of their growing strength. A little farther away, Lu Chongqing, dressed in a blue robe with a jade-like countenance and a gentle expression, watched the children practicing martial arts. Now, under his arrangements, these children had begun martial arts practice to fortify their bodies. His eldest son, Lu Pingon, due to his diligence in the martial path, had already cultivated internal qi. According to the secular martial arts circles, which divided martial prowess into categories such as unranked, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade, and innate, he was already considered a 2nd grade expert. A 2nd grade expert at the age of 12 was not unheard of in the secular martial arts circles, but it was exceedingly rare. Aside from a few individuals with exceptional talent, only descendants of cultivators could nurture children to such a level. After all, they were raised in lands with a spiritual vein, consuming spirit rice and spirit food. Their bodies contained little impurities. Such children learning martial arts were all seen as martial prodigies. Moreover, after sending these wives and children to the secular world, Lu Chongqing still regularly sent them spirit rice. However, such strength of a martial arts 2nd grade expert was still beneath the notice of the system. Lu Chongqing checked his son Lu Pingan's panel information through the system. In the strength column, it still displayed a single character. None. Lu Chongqing didn't mind this. If in the early days he harbored some hope of improving his own strength through his children's martial practices, now he did not entertain such thoughts much. He was more interested in them practicing martial arts for self-defense and maintaining good health. "Daddy, how well did I do?" After the morning practice session, Lu Wuyo cheerfully ran over to Lu Chongxing, calling out and asking with eyes full of adoration and dependency for her father. "You're the one who always slacks off." Lu Chongxing responded with a smile and ruffled his daughter's hair. Then with a purification art he turned it into a breeze that dried and cleansed his daughter's sweat-soaked clothes from training. Of course he didn't play favorites. He did the same for all the children. Witnessing this, the nearby martial masters were filled with reverence. "All right, everyone's tired, let's go have a meal." Lu Chongxing patted the children's heads and led them to have breakfast. The breakfast was very rich and nutritiously balanced. After all, this was a time when the children were growing. In this aspect, Lu Chongxing never stinted. He also wasn't short on money. After eating, Lu Chongxing took Lu Pingon and the other children to the backyard to feed the 9 netherhound. Raised for so many years, the 9 netherhound had grown as robust as a bull. Its mouth full of intersecting sharp fangs and its body covered in jet black fur that shone like satin. Last year, the 9 netherhound had progressed to a first-grade middle-stage demon beast. But for Lu Chongxing it meant little. To expect the 9 netherhound to give him a lift was clearly impossible. Unless he was willing to spend a vast amount of resources to cultivate the 9 netherhound and accelerate its growth. But the cost was too great. Lu Chongxing, despite having plenty of spare cash, could not afford such expenses. He planned on raising it slowly. In the future, it would serve as his family's guardian spiritual beast, to accompany his children and protect them on their journeys. 6 days later. "Dad, Uncle Hong is here." While Lu Chongxing was chatting in the backyard with his wives and children, a little one ran over and exclaimed, "You guys keep playing, I'll head over there." Hearing this, Lu Chongxing guessed it might be Xianxia, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin who had arrived, so he left to greet them. After seeing Hong Yi, the latter indeed confirmed that Han Lin, Xianxia, and Zhao Qingqing had arrived and were outside the city. Hearing this, Lu Chongxing nodded and went with Hong Yi to receive them from outside the city. As the two approached the city gates, they immediately saw 2 women and 1 man, 3 figures coming their way. It was Xianxia, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin. Xianxia was dressed in pale moon white with long black hair cascading down to her waist. Her strikingly beautiful face had not changed much in the past 10 years. Skin fair as jade, features delicate and elegant, she was breathtaking. But her overall appearance and demeanor had undergone an earth-shattering transformation compared to 10 years ago. Back then she was characterized by her forthrightness and vivacity. Her face wore a bright smile that was as warm as the spring sun, easily inviting favor from those around her. The current Xianxia, however, had a cool countenance. Her aura was like that of the pure, untouchable moon shining high above, serene, noble, detached from the world. She was someone people would admire from afar, wary of approaching her without due reverence. Lu Chongxing, observing Xiaoxia's transformation, felt somewhat astonished. He was curious about what she had encountered over the past 10 years that had led to such a drastic change. Although she looked similar, she seemed like a completely different person. If it weren't for her presence with Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin, Lu Chongxing would hardly be confident that this was Xiaoxia. Meanwhile, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin, aside from appearing a few years older and more mature, had not changed much from 10 years earlier. Daoist Xiao, Daoist Zhao, Daoist Han. Lu Chongxing did not ponder further but greeted them with a smile and a clasped fist. Hong Yi also seemed surprised by Xiaoxia's change but did not scrutinize further. With an open and natural smile, he clasped his fists and said, "My fellow Daoists, you've been well, I trust." Daoist Hong, Daoist Lu. Xiaoxia and her companions nodded to Lu Chongxing and Hong Yi, greeting them in return. They looked at Lu Chongxing, their eyes reflecting a similar surprise as they observed his demeanor, much like how Lu Chongxing and Hong Yi had reacted to seeing Xiaoxia. Chapter 274. Xiaoxia's request. 10 years had passed, and their appearances and demeanors had all changed more or less. Take Hong Yi, for example, who now wore a purple luxurious brocade robe and a purple gold crown on his head, and had grown a beard at the corners of his lips. Compared with 10 years ago, the whole person seemed countless times more mature and composed. Yet Lu Chongxing still had the appearance of a 20-year-old. His handsome and vibrant face still vaguely reflected the contours of 10 years prior. But his entire being appeared even more ethereal and graceful, refined beyond the mortal realm. Beholding him was like seeing a graceful, flawless beauty, noble and unsullied, like an orchid or a jade tree in spring, bestowing upon others a sense of serenity and detachment. If not for knowing Lu Changsheng's situation, they would have believed him if he claimed to be a core disciple of an immortal sect or a descendant of a grand cultivation family, given his temperament and looks. As Xianxia approached and saw Lu Changsheng, an inexplicable emotion surged within her heart, causing it to suddenly flutter. This supreme forgetful love technique that she was cultivating involuntarily began to circulate. This is... Xianxia paused slightly in surprise. She noticed that upon seeing Lu Changsheng, her heart, which was as tranquil as the bright moon, began to ripple slightly. After cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique, her heart had become like the moon in the sky, undisturbed by emotions and untrapped by feelings. No matter the event, it was difficult for anything to move her or cause a disturbance within her. However, at this moment seeing Lu Changsheng made her heart flutter, involuntarily initiating the circulation of the supreme forgetful love technique. Could it be, this is the opportunity, the catalyst for my breakthrough? Xiaoxia's eyes, as cold and moving as the stars and the moon, reflected her thoughts. Having cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique, her cultivation level had reached the perfection of qi refinement. Yet due to her state of mind she had always been unable to break through. Her master Yun Wanshang had given her 3 years. Now half of those 3 years had passed. She had also realized that she could not break through on her own. She must venture out, temper her heart in the mortal world, and use external forces to facilitate the breakthrough. That was the purpose of her coming down the mountain for this meeting. Thinking of the remaining year and a half, she planned to travel in the mortal realm in search of that breakthrough opportunity. Unexpectedly, she had just left the mountain and met with old friends, which had caused her heart to quiver and the supreme forgetful love technique to activate automatically. Why isn't Li Feiyu here? Where has Brother Li gone? Han Lin, seeing only Lu Changxing and Hong Yi, asked aloud. Feiyu went out for experience last year and has been held up by some matters. He might not be able to make it back in time, so he asked me to apologize on his behalf, Lu Changxing said, bowing his hands. I didn't expect Brother Li to have gone out for experience. Hearing this, Han Lin nodded slightly and didn't say much else. The 3 of you have had a tiresome journey. I have already made arrangements at the Rui Tower, still the same condensing immortal pavilion as before, Hong Yi said, stepping forward to lead the way. Presently, the 5 of them walked and talked on their way to the Rui Tower, the condensing immortal pavilion. Please take a seat, Hong Yi said with a cheerful smile after everyone was seated, serving spiritual tea and spirit fruit to the guests. Compared to 10 years ago, this reunion clearly lacked the same ease and familiarity. One reason was that their relationships had only been average to begin with. Having not seen each other for 10 years and with only the occasional exchange of letters, another was that 10 years ago, there were those who livened up the gathering and steered the conversation. But now, with Xiaoxia's cold and fairy-like demeanor, she hardly spoke. And with Lu Changxing, Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing naturally not being talkative people, and the absence of Li Feiyu, however, under Hong Yi's lead, Lu Changxing, Han Lin, and Zhao Qingqing became actively engaged in searching for topics, gradually warming up and having a harmonious and congenial conversation. In the course of the interaction, Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing mentioned some of the happenings within the Qingyun sect and great events of the cultivation world, while Lu Changxing and Hong Yi spoke of some worldly matters, events within the marketplaces. During this, Lu Changxing also mentioned his brother-in-law, Xia Zhaoyang. Lu Changxing hadn't paid much attention to this brother-in-law. He had only occasionally heard about his sister-in-law Xia Zizhu's brother in her letters. When Xia Zizhu sent letters, he had included a few dozen spirit stones as a gesture. It wasn't much, just a token of consideration as a brother-in-law, a simple investment. Xia Zhaoyang, I've heard of him. I never thought he'd actually be a relative of brother Changxing. Han Lin expressed surprise upon hearing this. Working in the Qingyun sect's artifact refining hall, despite being relatively unknown, he was well informed. Since Xia Zhaoyang possessed a 4th-grade spiritual root and had entered the inner sect and been taken as a disciple by a foundation establishment elder, he was familiar with him. At this moment the others also spoke of their recent conditions, which revealed to Lu Chongqing that Han Lin had reached the 6th level of energy refinement, and that Zhao Qingqing, having recently exchanged for a high-rank breakthrough elixir from the sect, had broken through to the 7th level of energy refinement with the help of the elixir. This level of cultivation strength made Lu Chongqing sigh with admiration. They were truly worthy of being Immortal sect disciples. Likewise, Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing were both outer sect disciples of the Qingyun sect. They were also tied up with side jobs and distracted by various skill-related tasks at times. Yet under these circumstances, one had reached the 6th level, and the other had reached the 7th level of energy refinement. One must know Lu Miaoge as the young lady of the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain with a 5th grade spiritual root, had also only broken through to the 7th level of energy refinement at the age of 29. As for Hong Yi and Li Feiyu having lower grade spiritual roots, one was still at the 4th level of energy refinement, and the other had only recently broken through to the 5th level. As for himself, Lu Chongqing chose to exclude himself from comparison. After all, he had an advantage. Externally, he claimed to have only recently broken through to the 6th level of energy refinement. Brother Chongqing seems to have the most leisurely life, embraced by the family of cultivators, marrying and having children, while steadily improving in both cultivation and the talisman path, Han Lin remarked with a sense of emotion. He had been the closest to Lu Chongqing since the beginning. Although they had grown distant, he still felt some affinity for him. I can't compare with your prospects of the immortal path. Lu Chongqing waved his hand and chuckled in response. Then turning to Xianxia, who had a cold and celestial appearance beside him, he inquired, I heard that Daoist Xiao has been taken as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal. May I ask how your recent cultivation has been? Chapter 275. Xiaoxia's request. Lu Chongqing asked this out of curiosity about Xiaoxia's situation. Additionally, he felt that Xiaoxia seemed to be sizing him up continuously. Over the years I have been cultivating in stillness, and now I have achieved qi refinement to perfection. This descent from the mountain is also a trial to seek an opportunity for a breakthrough, Xiaoxia said gently, her voice clear, cold, and touching. Hiss. Upon hearing these words, everyone couldn't help but express their surprise, drawing in sharp breaths. Qi refinement to perfection, searching for the chance of a breakthrough. It was clear that she was looking for the opportunity to break through to foundation establishment. Unexpectedly, in just 10 years, Xiaoxia had cultivated to qi refinement perfection and was preparing for foundation establishment. The gap between her and the others could only be described as heaven and earth. Not only were Hong Yi, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin surprised, but Lu Chongqing was also somewhat astonished. However, Lu Chongqing was more bewildered. He remembered that Xiaoxia had only a 4th grade spiritual root. A 4th grade spiritual root, even within immortal sects, couldn't possibly have such a fast cultivation speed. Could it be that Xiaoxia possesses some sort of spiritual body? Lu Chongqing immediately speculated in his heart. He had a simple reason for such a guess. Xiaoxia was accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal. If it were just a 4th grade spiritual root, it was highly unlikely to be favored by a nascent soul immortal to become a disciple. At most, she would attract a foundation establishment elder to accept her as a disciple. After all, within the entire Qingyun sect, nascent soul immortals are few in number. Unless it was an earth spirit root or a heavenly spiritual root with truly extraordinary talent, they would not easily accept disciples. Or could it be the practice of a certain cultivation technique? Lu Chongqing thought of another reason. He, practicing the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, knew the significant help a good cultivation method could offer to a practitioner. Without that scripture, which could refine elixir toxicity and ignore minor bottlenecks, his cultivation speed would certainly not have been so fast. Therefore, he conjectured that Xiaoxia was likely also practicing such a technique. But this technique came with side effects. He had read in ancient tomes that many powerful techniques come with side effects, like masculine becoming feminine, drastic changes in appearance, major changes in character and temperament. Xiaoxia's current appearance, which had changed, made him suspect it was a case in point. Otherwise, how could there be such a dramatic change after just 10 years of cultivation? However, despite his speculation, this was not the kind of thing Lu Chongqing would inquire about further. In the cultivation world, one's constitution and cultivation methods are exceedingly private matters. Then let me extend an early congratulations to Daoist Xiao on a successful foundation establishment. Hong Yi immediately picked up his teacup in a daze and said so. When the 6 of them first took part in the Immortal sex examination together, he pursued Xianxia with feelings of admiration and love. 13 years have passed and he has achieved some success in the mortal world. Yet foundation establishment still seemed to him an elusive term. But now, Xianxia was already preparing for foundation establishment, which left him feeling particularly moved. Wishing Daoist Xiao the opportunity and success in foundation establishment. We also wish Sister Xiao success in foundation establishment. We also wish Sister Xiao success in foundation establishment. Lu Chongxing, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin also raised their glasses to offer congratulations. Thank you. Xiaoxia's cool gaze softened somewhat as she raised her glass to drink with everyone. But her eyes involuntarily fell upon Lu Chongxing once again. She discovered that whenever she looked at Lu Chongxing, her heart experienced a faint, almost imperceptible flutter. If not for the operation of the supreme forgetful love technique, even Xiaoxia herself might think it was an illusion, hard-pressed to grasp this emotional flutter. To break through, do I really need to go through this emotional tribulation? Xiaoxia murmured to herself as she looked at Lu Chongxing. She thought of her master's teachings. To truly cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique to a state of heartlessness and forgetfulness, one must experience emotional tribulation to comprehend the essence of the supreme forgetful love. Although she didn't know why, facing Lu Chongxing, why such a flutter arose in her heart. But the spiritual mechanism within told her that her chance for a breakthrough might well lie with Lu Chongxing. Thinking that her opportunity for a breakthrough fell upon Lu Chongxing, requiring an emotional tribulation with him, her heart was somewhat in disarray, clueless. Over the years she had been cultivating at Qingyun's sect, with little understanding of matters of affection. She had only glimpsed such matters in books a few times. What's more, after practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, her heart had grown more indifferent, almost forgetting affection. Now to face an emotional tribulation, she indeed didn't know how to proceed or where to start. Didn't I come down the mountain just to find this opportunity? Now that the chance is before my eyes, why should I hesitate? At that moment, Xiaoxia's conflicted heart became resolute. When she initially chose to practice the supreme forgetful love technique, she knew it was a path of no return. She understood that without the mindset of hearing the way in the morning and being ready to die in the evening, her progress in life would be halted with no hope for the great Tao. Now that the opportunity was right before her, it was naturally not to be missed. Moreover, from the recent chat she had also learned that Lu Chongxing had numerous wives and descendants and rich experience in matters of affection. Perhaps it was for that reason that her breakthrough chance was connected to Lu Chongxing. Soon after, Xiaoxia gradually began to speak and joined in on some of the group's topics of conversation. Daoist Hong, Daoist Lu, you who cultivate within the turmoil of the mortal world and tainted with the breath of mortal concerns, it may affect your cultivation. However, if you temper your purity amidst the mortal world, it will assist in cultivation, mindset and overcoming bottlenecks. When the conversation turned to cultivation, Xiaoxia spoke out, providing a few suggestions on their cultivation. She often had guidance from her nascent soul master and practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, which focuses immensely on mindset. Hence she had many insights into this matter. Thank you for the guidance, Daoist Xiao, Hong Yi said, visibly moved by the honor. Thank you for the guidance, Daoist Xiao. Chapter 276. Xiaoxia's request under for Lu Chongxing also bowed slightly, roughly understanding that this concept was not far off from his own initial thoughts. It's not about guidance, just a few suggestions, he said. Although Xiaoxia's visage was cold and detached, like a fairy from the moon palace above the 9 heavens, her words carried no arrogance and were very gentle. Thus, with Xiaoxia's participation, the atmosphere of the conversation became even more harmonious. Especially in the aspect of cultivation, Xiaoxia, a fairy who had achieved perfection in qi refinement, often illuminated the path for others with just a few words, leading to great epiphanies and gains. This also made Lu Chongxing realize the importance of companionship within wealth, companionship, law and land. In the lengthy process of cultivation, nearly everyone would face some difficulties and doubts. If one were to work in isolation, it would be hard to get far. But with a mentor and a group of like-minded Daoist friends to exchange thoughts with, things would be much better. During the conversation, Xianxia also occasionally asked Lu Chongqing about some matters and questions of everyday life. This was also her reason for engaging in the conversation and chat. From Lu Chongqing she saw the opportunity for her own breakthrough. However, she couldn't directly bring up emotional tribulations or matters of cultivation. She needed to observe and understand Lu Chongqing's situation first. After all, emotional tribulations could harm oneself and others if not handled well and affect others. Although her emotions had gradually become indifferent, she wouldn't become cold-hearted just for the sake of cultivation. Lu Chongqing was somewhat surprised by this concern. But hearing that Xiaoxia's descent from the mountain was mainly for mortal heart tempering, he didn't mind. After all, they had all experienced many worldly affairs. However, Xiaoxia and her two companions had always been cultivating in immortal sects and rarely dealt with mundane chores. There is no feast that doesn't come to an end in this world. Seeing that the sun was setting, everyone concluded the gathering and bid each other farewell. Zhao Qingqing mentioned that she had a mission to do, and Han Lin was heading home to visit his relatives. Lu Daoist, I have descended the mountain to wander the secular world in search of opportunities, she said. But I am not very familiar with many worldly and cultivation world matters, and I have no specific destination in mind. May I ask you to take me with you for a while if possible? She asked. Before departing, Xiaoxia didn't leave immediately but turned to Lu Chongqing and spoke. She was clad in white robes purer than snow, her complexion cold and peerless, like the bright moon in the sky, calm and indifferent, with an aura of otherworldliness. Lu Chongqing was slightly taken aback upon hearing this. However, from their recent conversation he knew that Xiaoxia's descent was for mortal heart tempering and to break through foundation establishment. Such a request didn't seem abrupt to him. I usually just travel between Rui Prefecture, Tingzhu Mountain and the marketplace. If Daoist Xiao temporarily has no destination, I am certainly willing to take her along for the journey, Lu Chongqing said after a moment's consideration. As a disciple of an immortal sect and moreover, a disciple of a nascent soul immortal, Lu Chongqing naturally wished to maintain a good relationship. Just taking her along for a part of his journey as far as he was concerned, was not a troublesome matter, so he agreed without hesitation. Whether or not it bore fruit, he would still be owed a favor by her. The favor of a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from an immortal sect also counted as a connection and backing. Especially since his Qingzhu mountain was under the jurisdiction of the Qingyun sect. Thank you, Lu Daoist, Xiaoxia said, her cool eyes revealing a hint of warmth, like a night-blooming Sirius unfolding. I've always been in the secular world and have some understanding of the cultivation world. Why didn't you ask me? Hong Yi remained silent on the side but couldn't help feeling a tinge of sourness in his heart. Chapter 277. My Cultivation with the Fairy. _1 Under the envious gaze of Hong Yi, Lu Chongqing left with Xiaoxia. I wonder how Daoist Xiao plans to travel on this trip? Lu Chongqing asked Xiaoxia. Since he had agreed, he naturally wouldn't just let the other stay at his home or in the marketplace without caring for her. He ought to show some hospitality as a host. To travel in all directions, observe all life, amidst the tumult of the mortal world. Xiaoxia said softly. Her words were not entirely empty. Indeed, to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique truly required such experiences. However, she had skipped this step by using the red dust elixir. But the red dust elixir was, after all, an external object and had not brought her mind to a state of complete perfection. All life, the chaos of the mortal world. Lu Chongqing nodded thoughtfully. He felt that the cultivation technique practiced by the other must be no simple matter. After all, ordinary cultivation techniques like the returning origin technique and Chongqing technique have no requirements in terms of mental state. Only cultivation techniques of the exquisite level and above have such requirements. This is also why the more advanced the cultivation technique, the harder it is to practice and the higher its threshold. I wonder if Daoist Lu has any suggestions? Xiaoxia asked with a calm and clear expression. Lu has no particularly good suggestions, but in the coming days I can accompany Daoist Xiao to walk and see this mundane world. Later, we can also go to the cultivation marketplace for a visit. If Daoist Xiao wishes to hunt demon beasts or explore some cave heaven secret realms, I am of too low a cultivation level to be of help, Lu Chongqing said. In the cultivation world, many people facing bottlenecks choose to hunt demon beasts or explore secret realms. By tempering themselves between life and death, comprehending the great terror within it, and stimulating their potential, they seek to break through their limitations. Although Xianxia did not share this situation, he still had to say this up front. "Thank you for the trouble, Daoist Lu," Xianxia said, nodding slightly. Then she looked toward Lu Chongqing and asked as ripples crossed her calm eyes, "Daoist Lu, your youthful appearance, is it because you practice wood or water elemental cultivation techniques?" She was still unaware of why her heart fluttered in front of Lu Chongqing, prompting the imperceptible love technique to activate automatically. But looking at Lu Chongqing's handsome and youthful features, she couldn't help but wonder if it was related to the cultivation technique he practiced. The change in Lu Chongqing's appearance and temperament was indeed dramatic. 13 years had passed. She had almost forgotten what Lu Chongqing used to look like. Yet she faintly remembered that he was once unremarkable in a crowd. But now, even by her standards, she had to admit that Lu Chongqing was incredibly handsome. Not just handsome. His skin, physique, and temperament were all in perfect harmony, beyond reproach. One would feel at ease and a natural fondness looking at him. Xianxia naturally knew that many wood and water elemental cultivation techniques included effects that preserved youth and beauty. But in the qi refinement realm, ordinary cultivation techniques absolutely could not achieve the effect that Lu Chongqing had. "Indeed, I am but a 9th grade spiritual root, so I chose to practice a wood elemental life-nourishing cultivation technique. As for preserving youth, I have also taken some elixir medicines for that purpose," Lu Chongqing said without a blink or a quickened heartbeat. He had become quite adept at such talk. And because he cultivated the immortal beauty technique and was affected by the peach blossom goo, his appearance and temperament did indeed seem like someone who practiced wood elemental techniques for preserving beauty. However, Xiaoxia's inquiry also made him more vigilant. He wondered if the fairy Xiu could see something in him. After all, he was very aware of the changes in his own appearance and aura. If someone was observant enough, they might notice something. Therefore, he always used a treasure to conceal this aura in his daily life. Otherwise, with many years of cultivating the immortal beauty technique and the effects of the peach blossom goo, just walking down the street would be enough to captivate mortal women with a single glance. It even had a considerable effect on cultivators. "I had no idea Daoist Lu was so concerned with his appearance," Xiaoxia said with a slight nod and a tinge of teasing in her voice. She realized that when she was with Lu Chongqing, her state of mind was no longer as undisturbed as usual, like the 9 heavens bright moon free of ripples. This made her aware that she could use this to temper her own mindset. Since we are cultivating immortality, we should indeed have the appearance of cultivators. After all, with my talents and abilities, I have no hope for the great Tao in this lifetime, so I can only focus on such things, Lu Chongqing said casually. In the path of cultivation, what one fears is the loss of confidence. If Daoist Lu retains a thread of belief, there will surely be a glimmer of hope, Xiaoxia said to Lu Chongqing. "I have taken your lesson to heart," Lu Chongqing said courteously with a slight bow, acknowledging her good intentions without being stubborn about it. Then the two walked and talked together as they approached the Lu family mansion. "Daddy." In front of the mansion doors, Lu Shila sat on a small stool eating a candied haw. Seeing Lu Chongqing return, she immediately got up and excitedly shouted. Then the little girl's gaze shifted to Xiaoxia and she asked, "Daddy, is this the new auntie?" "Fairy auntie. Hello, my name is Lu Shila," the little girl said, looking adorably at Xiaoxia with her crisp voice. "Ahem, this is Daddy's friend. You can call her Aunt Xiyu," Lu Chongqing said, coughing lightly after hearing his daughter's words. He didn't blame the child for speaking out of turn. Then he turned to Xiaoxia and said, "Please do not take offense, Daoist Xiao." "No worries, your daughter is very cute," Xiaoxia shook her head slightly. Despite her usually cold and proud expression, her eyes and voice were gentle. Gracefully smoothing her moon-white dress, she crouched down to admire Lu Xiao's charming stance and asked softly, "Little sister, how old are you this year?" Chapter 278. My Cultivation with the Fairy. I'm 10 years old this year." Lu Shila bit off half of her candied hawthorn on a stick in one bite. Then she offered it to Xiaoxia. "Auntie Xiyu, Daddy said when guests come over we should treat them well, so I want to treat you to candied hawthorn." Xiaoxia was slightly taken aback. She couldn't help but think back to her own childhood. Once upon a time she, like the little girl in front of her, had a lively face and loved to eat candied hawthorn. Her eyes curved into a smile and a gentle look appeared on her face. She opened her enticing rosy lips and took a bite from the half-red fruit on the little girl's stick. Really delicious. Xianxia touched Lu Xiao's head and said, her quiet state of mind rippling slightly. This reinforced her certainty that Lu Chongqing was her chance to break through delusions and advance her state of mind. A glowing moon-white jade pendant appeared in her hand, which she handed to Lu Xile. This is a gift from your auntie. Lu Xile did not accept it immediately but looked toward her father. Since it's a gift from auntie, you should keep it, Lu Chongqing spoke. He could tell that this was not an ordinary jade pendant. It was a spirit jade. As for its value, he couldn't discern it at a glance. But since it was for his child, he didn't decline it. He also knew that by giving a gift to his child, Xianxia was expressing her gratitude for bothering him. Thank you, Auntie Xiao. The little girl gleefully accepted the jade pendant. She saw that the jade pendant was translucent and sparkling, very pretty, and she liked it very much. She then talked to Xianxia even more warmly, asking if Xianxia had eaten and if she would like to go out and play. In the face of the little girl's enthusiasm, Xianxia did not decline and went with the flow. Seeing this, Lu Chongqing didn't say anything. He just let his daughter take her out for a chat and a walk. What exactly is the situation with this Xiao Daoist friend? Watching Lu Xile taking Xianxia away, Lu Chongqing narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. From their conversation along the way, he was almost certain that there was something off about Xianxia. Asking him for company was definitely not as simple as she claimed, just wandering the mortal world with no particular destination in mind. She must have some kind of purpose in mind concerning him. He believed that Xiaoxia's descent from the mountain was indeed to wander the world, tempering her heart in the mortal realm, looking for an opportunity to break through. But to say she had no destination and asked him for company felt far-fetched to Lu Chongqing. After all, as a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from the Qingyun sect, how could she have no destination when going out for training experiences? She would definitely have had someone plan her journey or even have company. Moreover, he felt that Hong Yi might be more suitable than himself for this kind of wandering temperament. This reason felt strange to Lu Chongqing but was at most passable. But along the way, Lu Chongqing had been observing Xianxia closely. He noticed that Xiaoxia's gaze often lingered on him. And he keenly perceived that her eyes and demeanor were changing. This change was subtle and he couldn't describe it exactly. If he had to say, it was that she was not so cold, not so indifferent anymore. Today when he and Hong Yi went to meet the three of them, he saw Xiaoxia's first glance and noticed the cool, holy aura about her. Like a fairy from the heavens, calm and indifferent, unapproachable. It was still the case when they arrived at Rui Building. Only after a long conversation did Xiaoxia's indifference gradually recede a bit. At that moment, Lu Chongqing realized that Xiaoxia was sizing him up but didn't think too much of it. After she proposed that he accompany her, Lu Chongqing became more cautious, so all along the way by observing he could confirm that Xiaoxia must have some purpose for him. Wait a minute, when she's with me her expressions and attitudes change. Could this be? Lu Chongqing's mouth twitched. He suddenly felt like it might be akin to a goddess showing interest in someone, only then letting go of her usual aloofness. Although I'm quite charming now, it couldn't be this easy, Lu Chongqing stroked his chin. He was someone with a fair sense of self-awareness. He knew well that his charisma could be quite lethal to the opposite sex. But it was unlikely to make Xiaoxia, a fairy of her stature, fall head over heels and take the initiative to throw herself at him. Could it be? A flash of enlightenment struck Lu Chongqing's mind. His mental spirits stirred, tuning into the peach blossom goose spiritual essence within his forehead. He wanted to see if this thing was once again stirring up romantic fortunes for him. After all, his relationship with Xiaoxia was nothing extraordinary. Now that she had come down to wander the mortal realm, with such an unusual behavior, he couldn't help but speculate if romantic fortune was at play. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A faint activity arose from the peach blossom goo between his brows, conveying a sense of awareness. As if to tell Lu Chongqing, it was indeed about romantic fortune. Good heavens! Receiving this feedback from the peach blossom goo, Lu Chongqing inwardly exclaimed in surprise. Understanding that Xiaoxia's abnormal behavior was indeed related to romantic fortune, he was at a loss for words for a moment. But it also eased his mind quite a bit. Knowing that Xiaoxia's request to accompany him carried no ill intent, no ulterior motive. Nevertheless, this romantic fortune is not so easy to deal with. Lu Chongqing took a deep breath and exhaled softly. To say he harbored no thoughts about Xianxia would be impossible. After all, this fairy Xiao was not only exquisitely beautiful but also possessed a fourth-grade spiritual root. She even had some kind of spiritual body. If she were just an ordinary inner sect disciple of the Qingyun sect, that would be one thing with some hope of a connection. But she wasn't just any disciple from the Immortal sects. She was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal. With such status and identity, if he were to impregnate her and have children, chances are it would bring trouble. After all, being accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal implies exceptional talent, and she would be entrusted with high expectations by the Immortal sects, fully devoted to her cultivation. Chapter 279. My cultivation with the fairy. If I end up having several children, that would delay the prime of my early years. Qingyun sect might, for the sake of letting their disciples focus on cultivation and sever worldly ties, just sever me instead. By then what was supposed to be a streak of romantic luck would turn into a calamity. So Lu Chongqing was very clear in his heart that a woman like Xianxia, he currently could not resist. Meanwhile, under the guidance of Lu Xile, Xianxia met the other wives, concubines and children of Lu Chongqing. She knew that Lu Chongqing had married numerous wives and concubines and had many children. But when she actually saw so many wives and children all at once, she still felt a bit surprised. However, she didn't know that these 20-plus children were only a small part. After separating from Lu Chongqing and spending some time chatting and playing with Lu Xile and a few children, Xianxia found her mindset gradually returning to tranquility and indifference. She reverted to her usual state of the supreme forgetful love technique. Is it really so? Xianxia murmured to herself, her eyes clear as water, detached and calm as she looked into the distance. She was almost certain that only Lu Chongqing could help her see through illusions and break through to the next realm. As for how to see through them, she had some idea in her mind. When she was by Lu Changsheng's side, her mental state was affected, causing the supreme forgetful love technique to operate automatically. If she could be unaffected in any way, keeping her heart tranquil and detached no matter what, she thought that would be seeing through the illusions and achieving a great state of mind. However, she still needed to continue to confirm this. In this manner, Xianxia stayed at the Lu residence. Lu Chongqing had planned to return to Qingzhou Mountain after the gathering, but due to Xiaoxia's presence he changed his plans. He spent his time taking Xiaoxia to wander around Rui Prefecture, observing the so-called afflictions of life and the chaos of the red dust. Lu Chongqing himself didn't know what these afflictions and chaos specifically entailed. And Xiaoxia couldn't explain clearly either. So, considering that she came from a literary family and had entered Qingyun sect for cultivation at the age of 15, he decided to show her some of the suffering of life, the hardships of the lower class. Like the women who were forced into brothels, the roadside vendors in the streets and alleys, the roughnecks, the beggars with disabilities, the dock workers who labored in hard and toilsome jobs, the tea houses, the wine lodges, the restaurants, patrons of all different stripes, the gangs of the Jianghu killing and fighting over interests. One day Lu Chongqing took Xiaoxia to a village in Rui Prefecture. It was a very poor and backward village. Yellow earth facing the sky, the mud roads pitted and uneven. Fields lined the sides of the road. The crops in the fields had been completely harvested. But one could still see some emaciated and frail farmers in ragged clothing with children, carrying baskets on their backs, picking up the grains missed during the harvest in the fields. Among them were some women who had just given birth, carrying infants who were crying for food, with faces of sheer exhaustion. When they saw Lu Chongqing and Xiaoxia, fear and humility showed in their eyes, with stiff, ingratiating smiles. Sigh. Lu Chongqing sighed deeply at the sight. He did not know how Xiaoxia's state of mind had been these days. But the hardships of this world genuinely made him feel a heavy heart. He felt somewhat relieved, apprehensive and panicked. Fortunate to possess a spiritual root, he had initially obtained a celestial fate. He was able to go to Qingyun sect to participate in the Immortal sect's examination. Otherwise, a peasant boy like him, even if he awakened his memories and had a system, would still face great difficulties. It would take an unknown amount of time, energy and effort to struggle up from this lowly position. Xiao Daoist, have you gained anything in these past few days? Lu Chongqing sighed lightly and asked Xiaoxia. Seeing all the hardships made him cherish his current life even more and gave him the motivation to keep striving. All living beings suffer, Xianxia said softly. These days she had seen much with Lu Chongqing, and her heart was deeply touched, reaping no small gains. But she could feel that these were not greatly helpful for her own breakthrough. The main focus was still on Lu Chongqing. However, through the days of being together, Xiaoxia's heart had also sunk into the influence of Lu Chongqing. Whenever they came into close contact, Xiaoxia felt herself enveloped in a spring breeze that swayed her mental spirit, prompting the supreme forgetful love technique to activate. But she also realized that just this was not enough, not sufficient for her to see through illusion for her mental state to break through. She knew in her heart that she needed to go further with Lu Chongqing. Only by experiencing the so-called love trial could she truly refine her mental state, achieve great enlightenment, and see through illusion with the supreme forgetful love. Lu Daoist has worked hard these past few days. Xiaoxia looked at Lu Chongqing and said. Her voice was no longer so cold but much gentler. Soon after, the two returned to Rui Prefecture to prepare for their visit to the Cultivation marketplace the next day. Night fell. Because they were leaving tomorrow, Lu Chongqing naturally spent a good time with his wives and concubines. Meanwhile, Xiaoxia sat cross-legged in her room. Her mind was in turmoil. She couldn't fall asleep or enter a state of cultivation. Love trial. Xiaoxia understood that she had been refining her mental state and seeing through illusion with the help of Lu Chongqing. Yet at the same time, these days had also made her troubled by the cage that was Lu Chongqing. Although her mental state had improved, she had sunk deeper and had to rely on the love trial for great enlightenment. She operated the supreme forgetful love technique and suppressed her distracting thoughts. She stepped out of her room, her skirt fluttering, landing on the roof and quietly gazed at the bright moon in the sky. The moonlight spilled over her, bathing her moon-white dress and flawless body, making her even more immaculate and noble, like the Guanghan fairy in the Moon Palace. The gentle night breeze lifted a corner of the moon-white dress, revealing the fairy's smooth, round legs, like ivory-white jade without an ounce of excess flesh, naturally perfect, unrivaled in grace and beauty. The wind also lifted the fairy's black hair. Strands of black hair and the moon-white dress swayed in the wind, dancing with the breeze, reflecting the owner's current mood and state of mind. Her bright, moon-like eyes gazed absently at a courtyard in the residence. Phew! Xiaoxia took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She knew that without a mental realization she would never be able to refine the supreme forgetful love technique. Immediately, a look of determination appeared in her eyes as she floated towards Lu Changsheng's courtyard. She was ready to tell him directly that she needed to experience the love trial to completely see through illusion. And not just to casually observe the myriad aspects of the world, amid the muddled and tumultuous mortal life. Chapter 280, Xiaoxia, so this is the love tribulation. _1 above the pitch-black night sky, a silver moon hung high. Its faint moonlight cascaded onto the pavilions and towers of the Lu family estate, as if draping them in a layer of silver gauze. The entire Lu family estate was engulfed in darkness and silence. The only exception was a courtyard within the inner house, still brightly lit. In the glow of frost-like radiance, a figure clad in white, resembling the celestial fairy of the bright moon above, drifted towards this courtyard, her sashes fluttering in the night breeze. Before even alighting, Xiao Shiyu, like the Guanghan fairy of the Moon Palace, suddenly heard a plaintive sound, sorrowful yet enchanting, filled with 1,000 graces. The sound caused Xiao Shiyu's exquisite features to slightly startle, and her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. This hastened pulse speeded the practice of her supreme forgetful love technique. What sound is this? Xiao Shiyu furrowed her pretty brows, somewhat perplexed in her heart. Why did such a simple sound cause such a throb within her? The supreme forgetful love technique ran its course, suppressing this inexplicable emotional pulse. She then followed the sound into a room within the courtyard. The shadows reflected by the window allowed her to instantaneously guess what was happening inside. This made her heart start thumping again. She realized her behavior was inappropriate. Her arrival was ill-timed. But a tremor of excitement surged within her, a tantalizing sensation, compelling her to channel a sliver of spiritual power into her beautiful eyes and peer through the window. Inside the chamber she saw several Lu family ladies she had met during the day with Lu Chongqing. In an instant Xiao Xiu felt as if struck by lightning. Her stunning face instantly flushed with crimson, almost letting out an alarmed cry. This single glance brought an unprecedented and intense impact to Xiao Xiu. The Dao heart that had just been calmed by the supreme forgetful love technique exploded at this moment. Her Dao heart shuddered, and the supreme forgetful love technique nearly failed, causing her delicate body to momentarily weaken. At the age of 15 she had entered the immortal sex, embarking on a single-minded path of cultivation. Though she had heard of the matters between men and women and had read some relevant books, she was still naively ignorant. Such scenes were foreign to her. Let alone such stimulating and shocking imagery. Under the moonlight, Xiao Xiyu's skin shone like luminous jade, reflecting with the cool moonlight. Her serene and holy visage, usually as cool as the 9 heavens' bright moon, was now flushed like the rosy dawn, a beauty beyond compare. Her emotions rose and fell tumultuously, leaving her dazed and at a loss. Could this be the emotional trial to endure? Xiao Xiu bit her lip lightly, the supreme forgetful love technique running at full speed, suppressing the roaring tides within her heart. Just now, the shock of the imagery she witnessed caused her heart to accelerate and her body to go weak. But simultaneously, the supreme forgetful love technique also spun wildly. The robust and impermeable barrier at her bottleneck seemed to subtly loosen at this moment. She faintly realized what her emotional trial was. Before this, she had only known that she must endure an emotional trial. That trial fell upon Lu Chongqing. Lu Chongqing was the opportunity for her breakthrough. But as for the specifics of the emotional trial, she herself was unclear. Because the word emotion is too broad. It could be familial love, friendship, romantic love, or the affection between a man and a woman. And each of these emotions can be divided into many types. In this moment she vaguely understood. It was about the emotions between a man and a woman. The emotions that include desire between a man and a woman. What she needed to do was suppress emotions, forget desires. Thus, to know emotions yet forget them, to have emotions yet remain detached. Upon realizing her emotional trial, Xiao Xiyu's eyes, as pure as the bright moon, flickered indecisively, trembling slightly. Not only was her heart in disarray, but her mind was also in chaos, feeling lost and dazed. And at the same time, inside the courtyard room, the diligently busy Lu Chongqing acutely sensed a spying presence. He frowned slightly. Although his estate lacked a great formation for protection, there were protectors patrolling the outer estate, and a 9 netherhound guarding the inner estate. In the mortal world, it would be extremely difficult for any master to infiltrate. His gaze pierced through the doors and windows, looking outside. He immediately spotted a white silhouette as ethereal as a fairy. Xiao Xiyu. Lu Chongqing looked at the white silhouette, somewhat surprised. He wondered what business the fairy Xiyu could have with him in the dead of night. Not cultivating or sleeping at night, did she come to chat or share her heart? However, seeing that the eavesdropper was Xiao Xiyu, not some malevolent figure, Lu Chongqing couldn't help but feel reassured. Yet this moment of inaction caused his wife, Lu Lanshu, to suddenly feel abandoned. Her elegant features from the daytime, now flush and bewitching, looked back at her husband. Her half-lidded eyes brimming with allure, her voice soft and sultry, she asked, "My lord, what is it?" The 3 other wives also turned their gaze towards Lu Chongqing. "It's nothing." Lu Chongqing, noting Xiao Xiyu hurriedly departing as soon as he looked out, didn't dwell on it further. Presumably, Xiao Xiyu had some urgent matter with him to come at such a late hour, thus stumbling upon such a scene. Besides, he couldn't very well stop what he was doing now to go ask Xiao Xiyu what the matter was, right? Meanwhile, Xiao Xiyu, amidst her inner turmoil, sensed the gaze of Lu Chongqing upon her. Even though she cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique and possessed a pure nature, unfamiliar with worldly affairs in such a situation, her heart couldn't help but flutter. Almost as if fleeing, she left the courtyard and floated back to her own. Returning to her room, Xiao Xiyu ran the supreme forgetful love technique swiftly, allowing her exquisite complexion to gradually return to its aloof coolness. But recalling that scene, she still felt a trembling deep within her soul, her delicate body burning with heat. So this is my emotional trial. No wonder I have always been unable to perfect the supreme forgetful love technique. My state of mind is still far from sufficient. Chapter 281. Xiaoxia. So this is the love tribulation. Xianxia murmured to herself. Without realizing it, she reached out to touch her cheek, which was slightly warm. She didn't even know what had just happened to herself. Was she bewitched? She was clearly aware of what Lu Chongqing was doing. And yet she still stole a glance. If I could completely control and suppress this emotion, perhaps that would be the time when my state of mind reaches completion and I can see through illusions. As she practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, Xiaoxia's emotions gradually stabilized. But the thought of having to completely control these emotions made Xiaoxia sigh quietly. She looked up at the bright moon hanging in the night sky through her window. Somehow the scene she had just witnessed appeared again before her eyes. It caused her freshly calmed heart to flutter slightly. Xiaoxia did not dispel the embarrassing image from her mind. Instead she chose to confront it directly. And even tried to imagine herself in it. Because for her it was also a way to temper her state of mind. If she couldn't even control such emotions, how could she talk about transcending the emotional tribulation and seeing through illusions? It was unclear how much time had passed. Xiaoxia found she could now look at the scene without any perturbation. Face the image that challenged her Dao heart. By then daylight had come. Xiaoxia stood up, straightened her moon-white dress, and applied a cleansing technique to herself. She prepared to find Lu Chongqing and have a frank discussion, to reveal the issues of the emotional tribulation. And explain last night's events. Lu Daoist. Xiaoxia went to the front courtyard and found Lu Chongqing. Because of last night's events, the sight of Lu Chongqing caused a faint ripple in her heart. However, after a whole night of tempering her state of mind, she didn't show any unusual signs. Xiao Daoist, let's have breakfast before setting off, Lu Chongqing said casually. He didn't bring up last night's events. After all, it was somewhat awkward to discuss such matters. The best approach was to act as if nothing had happened. It's not about that. I have something to discuss with Lu Daoist, Xiaoxia said, shaking her head slightly and speaking earnestly. Seeing her serious expression, Lu Chongqing knew she must have some important matter to discuss. Perhaps this was also why she came looking for him last night? Lu Chongqing immediately escorted Xiaoxia to a secluded side hall. He inquired, "May I know what Xiao Daoist would like to discuss?" Lu Daoist must have noticed a clear change in me compared to 10 years ago, Xiaoxia said softly, looking at Lu Chongqing. Lu Chongqing nodded. He was unsure as to why Xiaoxia was suddenly broaching this subject. It's because of the cultivation technique I have been practicing, Xiaoxia continued. Having spent the last few days with Lu Chongqing, experiencing life lessons and observing the lives of mortals, she had been observing him. Through her observation, Lu Chongqing had passed her tests. That's why she thought of revealing the matters of the emotional tribulation. If she was to reveal the tribulation, she needed to explain the whole context. When Lu Chongqing heard this, he thought to himself as expected. As he had suspected, Xiaoxia's changes were due to the practice of a particular cultivation technique. But he still didn't know why Xiaoxia was mentioning this to him. Not waiting for Lu Chongqing to speak, Xiaoxia continued. The cultivation technique I'm practicing is called the Supreme Forgetful Love Technique. To fully master this technique, one must experience the trials of the mortal world, understand grief and joy, separation and union, to comprehend the essence of supreme forgetfulness. My master crafted elixir medicines for me to skip this step and master the technique. But my state of mind still has flaws and I find it difficult to break through. Xiaoxia said slowly, maintaining an indifferent expression and a calm demeanor. Supreme Forgetful Love Technique? Lu Chongqing nodded slightly. He knew that profound techniques like these have such requirements. Therefore they are very difficult to practice. Like the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture he practiced, there were requirements for one's state of mind. However, he was an exception, having a shortcut to overlook this aspect. My state of mind is incomplete, and I gradually realized that I must overcome the emotional tribulation to break through the illusion and reach the fulfillment of my state of mind. My main purpose for descending the mountain is to undergo this emotional tribulation. And when I met Lu Daoist, I sensed an opportunity for a breakthrough from you. The emotional tribulation is likely related to Lu Daoist. That's why I asked Lu Daoist to accompany me on part of my journey. Xiaoxia spoke with a cool countenance and a tranquil tone. Emotional tribulation, Lu Chongqing uttered, his heart suddenly enlightened upon hearing this. Before, he only knew that Xianxia was close to him and asked him to accompany her for a part of her journey because of the peach blossom goo. But as for the specifics, he had no idea. Now, hearing Xianxia's words, he suddenly understood. The so-called emotional tribulation must involve experiencing matters of affection. Xianxia left the mountain, intending to experience emotions to overcome her bottleneck. But just after meeting him, the peach blossom goo made these emotions fall upon him. Xianxia had also realized this, which is why she had been observing and sizing him up continuously at the Rui Tower. And she took the initiative to say that she was planning to travel without a particular destination in mind and asked him to accompany her. The goal was to try to overcome her emotional tribulation through him and thus make a breakthrough. Now that she was being upfront, she likely wanted him to do something. As a good friend, helping Xiao Daoist with her troubles is naturally my unquestionable duty. I'm not sure how Xiao Daoist intends to undergo this emotional tribulation, but if I can be of help, Lu would naturally help. Since the other party had put it that way, Lu Chongqing felt it would not be good to refuse and thus spoke. As for this matter of emotional tribulation, I am not very clear about it myself. Originally, when I was beside Lu Daoist, my thoughts would become disordered, and my cultivation technique would operate automatically. Therefore, I would like to ask Lu Daoist to cooperate with me in an attempt, but last night, Xianxia, with a cold expression, seemed as ethereal as a fairy from the Moon Palace, her demeanor supremely pure and holy as she explained her situation. After all, when she decided to practice the supreme forgetful love technique, she possessed the resolve to ask about the way in the morning and be prepared to die in the evening, determination. Now that the way lay in front of her, she naturally wouldn't be coy like a young girl. This. After hearing Xiaoxia's words, Lu Chongqing was momentarily stunned. Although he had thoughts about Xianxia, he had suppressed these ideas for the time being due to her status and identity. But what she was talking about now, this undergoing of emotional tribulation, was entirely a proactive offering. In such a situation, saying he would cooperate was possible, and maybe with some deeper persuasion he could even get Xianxia to have a child with him before she returned to Qingyun sect. But Lu Chongqing did not harbor these thoughts. The identity of a nascent soul immortal disciple made him apprehensive. Regarding this matter of emotional tribulation, Lu also has some views, feeling that it may not necessarily require my involvement. Xiao Daoist can do this. Lu Chongqing pondered for a moment before speaking tactfully. If it were anyone else offering such an opportunity, someone would naturally not refuse. But Xiaoxia's status and identity were something he couldn't afford to provoke. Acting on it would not bring him much advantage, and it was likely to cause him endless embarrassment. Therefore, if she could resolve this emotional tribulation on her own, owing him a favor would be ideal. Is that really possible? Xiaoxia, after a moment of silence upon hearing Lu Changsheng's words, asked. Evidently, her heart was not entirely calm either. After all, her supreme forgetful love technique would be effected in front of Lu Chongqing. She couldn't achieve a state of absolute detachment. Xiao Daoist can give it a try. Lu Chongqing handed her a soft cushioned meditation mat. Immediately, the plan for both to tour the marketplace was revised. Inside the room, Xiaoxia, with a cold countenance, sat cross-legged on a pink meditation mat. Suddenly her beautiful brows furrowed slightly. Then on her cold and holy face, a hint of blush appeared, rendering her stunningly beautiful. The blush spread at a visible pace. It made her beautiful face flushed like the rosy clouds, her red lips slightly parted, and her breathing somewhat hurried. After a few breaths, the blush spread from her cheeks to her ears, making her delicate and lovely ears thoroughly red, and her snow-white graceful neck also gradually reddened. The perfect and delicate body inside the fairy's moon-white dress also started to tremble slightly. The embroidered shoes covering her round and petite jade feet trembled lightly, restless and uneasy. A moment later, a suppressed heavenly sound emanated from the fairy's throat, causing her to furrow her brows in pain, then look befuddled, her red lips parted as she collapsed to the ground. Huff! 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 Xiaoxia's bewitching eyes looked confusedly at the eaves, carefully observing the changes in her heart. In a daze, she realized the state of her heart at that moment, in that overwhelming dreamlike instance, was somewhat similar to last night when she witnessed the scene that impacted her Dao heart. To break through illusions, one must control these emotions. Xiaoxia murmured to herself. She could feel that this method indeed helped her, bringing a hint of ease to her heart. It felt as if much of the irritability and stray thoughts regarding her cultivation breakthrough had diminished. Even her realm seemed to have loosened a bit. But it's still not enough. Xianxia operated her supreme forgetful love technique, her eyes cold and calm as she murmured to herself. Propping up her body with her fair arms, she straightened her dress. Then Xianxia pushed open the room door and went out to find Lu Chongqing. Chapter 282, Yun Wanshang. Could something have happened to Shiyu? _1 Lu Chongqing hadn't expected Xianxia to return to seek him out so soon. Looking at Xianxia in front of him, wearing a moon-white long dress with delicate features and an exceptionally ethereal and cool demeanor, Lu Chongqing couldn't help feeling somewhat guilty. After all, looking back on it now, his idea seemed a bit off. Who would ask someone to cultivate like that? However, thinking about the unearthly beauty standing before him, as if she were a fairy from the Guanghan Moon Palace embarking on cultivation trials as he had suggested, a faint fire of irritation began to smolder in Lu Chongqing's danton. Shao Daoist, is the method I proposed effective? Lu Chongqing gathered his mental spirit, calmed his restless mind and asked earnestly. Yes, Xianxia replied softly. Her cold and succinct words were filled with temptation, stirring the imagination. If it's been of any help to you, that's good, Lu Chongqing exhaled lightly. Although he felt a little disappointed, he had at least managed to deal with the troublesome matter concerning Xianxia. After all, if he were to actually intervene, the loss would outweigh the gain and it would easily cause trouble. However, Shiyu can feel that this effect is not enough to break through the bottleneck, so I will still need Lu Daoist's help. Xiaoxia's chest heaved slightly and she spoke with her lips barely parting. A ripple appeared in her cool and calm eyes. Clearly, her heart was not as tranquil as her outward appearance suggested. After all, the supreme forgetful love technique is not about being truly without emotion, but about being so immersed in the great Tao that one remains unaffected by emotions and desires. Furthermore, she had not yet cultivated to such a level. Upon hearing this, Lu Chongqing's mouth twitched. He had not expected Xianxia to still require his assistance. This meant that what he had proposed had some effect, but it was not sufficient. He did not speak. It went without saying he could help, but the benefits did not balance out the costs. More loss than gain. Xianxia noticed the hesitation in Lu Chongqing. Although inexperienced in worldly affairs, she wasn't entirely naive. She knew that her request made Lu Chongqing apprehensive, probably because he was worried that such a matter would bring him trouble. Lu Daoist, Shiyu knows this matter is making it difficult for you. If Lu Daoist is willing to help, Shiyu would be immensely grateful and ready to offer thanks. Or if Lu Daoist has any requirements, please feel free to make them. Also, Shiyu is willing to make a Dao heart vow that, regardless of the outcome of this emotional trial, success or failure, I will not involve or blame Lu Daoist. All consequences will be borne by Shiyu alone, so Lu Daoist can rest assured, Xianxia said. Her eyes locked onto Lu Chongqing. A trace of heartfelt crimson flashed through her icy eyes but was quickly replaced by a look of determination. Now that the opportunity for her breakthrough was within reach, even her Moon Palace serene heart of the supreme forgetful love technique could hardly suppress this sense of urgency. Lu Chongqing, upon hearing these words, pursed his lips. He could tell that Xianxia was sincere. And he was quite pleased with her proactive approach. A Dao heart vow might not be infallible, but for someone like Xianxia who was single-minded in her cultivation, it was a reliably safe course of action. Since she had said so much, he felt he could agree to the arrangement. After all, he wasn't planning to make her bear children right now. Having made up his mind, Lu Chongqing said to Xianxia, "Since Shao Daoist has put it that way, how can I refuse? There's no need for any lavish gifts. I only hope that in the future you can help me with one thing. I have yet to decide what it is. I will let you know once I have figured it out," Lu Chongqing stated. In his view, having helped Xianxia with such an intimate act as surmounting an emotional trial, Xianxia might as well be considered the mother of his future child. It was not convenient for him to take her home to be the mother now, but it would be no issue once he had the strength to do so. Considering Xianxia's current cool demeanor, if she continued to progress in her cultivation, she might become an icy statue. So it was necessary to plant a seed earlier on. After all, Lu Chongqing never forced anyone. Upon hearing this, Xianxia's eyebrows knitted slightly. She would not have agreed to such a condition from anyone else, as it was akin to a sword hanging over one's head, making it difficult to cultivate in peace. But considering this was related to her great Dao opportunity and the cause and effect of her emotional trial, and given her interactions with Lu Chongqing over these days, she felt relatively confident about his character. Otherwise, she wouldn't have disclosed her emotional trial to him. She nodded and said, "As long as it does not go against the Dao heart, she will do her best to fulfill it when the time comes." Xianxia spoke and then solemnly raised her hand to take the vow. She vowed that she would not blame Lu Chongqing whether the emotional trial succeeded or failed, and that she alone would bear the consequences of any event. Bearing a few children shouldn't count as going against the Dao heart, right? Lu Chongqing thought to himself watching Xianxia make her vow. He nodded slightly and said to Xianxia, "How do you plan to start?" At these words, Xianxia blinked in surprise. She knew her emotional trial was related to the affections between men and women, her own desires, but how to begin or what to do next she found herself at a loss. After all, in this matter she was truly clueless. The next moment she saw Lu Changsheng's handsome face drawing closer. A warm, moist breath approached her lips and enveloped them. A blush like blooming snow lotuses crept onto Xiaoxia's face. Her heart pounded furiously, wanting to push Lu Chongqing away. But the surging shyness and desire within her, controlled by the supreme forgetful love technique, suppressed her instinctive reaction. Her eyelashes quivered as she hid her embarrassment, her face filled with bewilderment and helplessness, allowing him to take the lead. Chapter 283, Yun Wanshang. Could something have happened to Shiyu? The fervent breath pried open her clenched teeth, intensifying her emotions to an overpowering degree, rendering her nearly incapable of self-control. No, this can't happen. Moments later, Xiaoxia felt the supreme forgetful love technique almost fail, and a languid moan escaped from her nostrils as she lightly struggled. Her stunningly beautiful face was flushed with a rosy hue, her delicate body going limp in waves. She seemed powerless to resist, almost collapsing in Lu Changsheng's arms. After a while, Lu Chongqing embraced Xiaoxia's tall and graceful figure, and in a gentle voice he said, "Daoist Xiao, is this the desired effect?" Xiaoxia's eyes were slightly downcast, her lips tenderly pink as she softly murmured a hum. The sunlight outside streamed through the lattice windows, sprinkling over the fairy's jade-like face. It bloomed on her beautiful cheeks like trees laden with snow and brought a hint of shallowness and enchantment to her holy and charming appearance. With the circulation of the supreme forgetful love technique, Xiaoxia gradually suppressed and extinguished the tide of carnal desire. Would Daoist Xiao like to continue? Lu Chongqing, holding her waist and smelling the fragrance from her hair, asked, looking at Xiaoxia in such a state. He found the fairy Shiyu's appearance quite amusing. Normally she seemed cold and aloof, like the 9 heavens bright moon high above, serene, sacred, indifferent and calm, provoking only distant admiration without daring any desecration. Yet with the slightest intimacy she would become like a little girl, her face flush with shyness, her body going weak. Once it stopped, she would slowly revert to the ethereal fairy demeanor. Wait just a moment. Xiaoxia, with eyes enchanting as the moon, allowed the man to wrap his arms around her waist and smell her dark silky hair as she whispered softly. She could feel that just being held like this, breathing in the masculine scent of Lu Chongqing, made her heart restless. Lu Chongqing, hearing this, remained silent. He simply held her, quietly embracing the tall, exquisite softness, relishing her beauty. After all, he was helping someone in her cultivation. They say that doctors possess compassion, and saving a life is more meritorious than building a 7-tiered pagoda. In Lu Changsheng's view, assisting someone in their cultivation was much the same. A man and a woman, like a pair of celestial beings, quietly embraced each other. It was unclear how much time passed. Xiaoxia's emotions stabilized. She had gradually become accustomed to Lu Changsheng's breath and embrace. Suddenly, the fairy pursed her lips and took the initiative to lift her cold jade-like face, the moon-white embroidered shoes elevating slightly. Their lips met, eyes closed gently. During this process, Xiaoxia's cheeks began to blush once again. It was her first kiss just now. And now it was her first time initiating a kiss. During this, she remained shy and passive, allowing the actions to happen to her without taking the lead. Desire surged wildly within her, making the supreme forgetful love technique circulate rapidly, her stunningly beautiful cheeks radiating with allure, a blush spreading from her face to her ears and neck. Moments later, the raised tips of her toes inside the moon-white embroidered shoes began to weaken along with her delicate body. And just then Xianxia, who was lost in the intoxication as if savoring fine wine, suddenly stiffened as if struck by lightning. With a soft yelp, her entire delicate body went limp and she began to tremble. This caused the effect of the supreme forgetful love technique to directly fail. No, this mustn't happen. The beautiful face of the fairy flushed red as blood, experiencing an odd sensation on her chest, her legs going weak. She quickly gasped for breath and spoke out to stop Lu Changsheng's actions. Huff, huff, huff. As their lips parted, Xianxia gasped for air, her breath as fragrant as orchids. She pursed the corners of her lips and, pretending to be composed, lifted her hand to wipe away the traces at the corner of her mouth and said, Lu Daoist, let's call it a day. She felt that things were moving too fast and she had to take time to properly digest it. But having said that, her body had yet to recover from its trembling, still leaning in Lu Changsheng's arms. All right, as Daoist Xiao wishes. Lu Changsheng looked at the radiant beauty in his arms, her lips lustrous and full, at the fairy who was struggling to maintain self-control, and a hint of amusement crossed his mind. He thought to himself that this fairy's combat strength was really too weak. If this were the case, her path to cultivation would indeed be very long. After a while, Xiaoxia's demeanor calmed down a bit. She gave Lu Changsheng a salute and staggered away. Watching the hastily departing fairy, Lu Changsheng chuckled softly, twirling his fingers and bringing them to his nose to sniff. He could still smell a fragrance like a blossoming garden of flowers. He couldn't help thinking, the fairy indeed carried her own weight, certainly not one to leave her children hungry in the future. Phew. Having just assisted the fairy in her cultivation, Lu Changsheng felt that it had also affected him, his mind a bit disordered. He would need to find his wives and consorts to help with his own cultivation. After returning to her room, Xiaoxia had a maid fill a tub with water for her to bathe. She soaked alone in the bathtub scattered with flower petals. Is it worth it? During the recent cultivation session, which nearly nullified the supreme forgetful love technique, her state of mind seemed to revert to her once genuine and lively self, her heartstrings beginning to quiver. She questioned herself whether it was worth it to do this for the sake of cultivation. A trace of confusion flashed in Xiaoxia's eyes. She recalled joining the Qingyun sect, her master Yun Wanshang imparting the supreme forgetful love technique to her, and her own resolute choice of the supreme forgetful love technique without any hesitation. She remembered the years of hard cultivation, the leaving of the mountain for experience, and clarifying Lu Changsheng's emotional calamity with him. She was acutely aware that all this was her own choice, following her true nature. It's worth it, all of it. Xiaoxia's eyes were clear, the confusion, retreat, and regret in her heart clearing away. As the supreme forgetful love technique circulated, her beautiful eyes became as cold as the moon. She murmured to herself, It can certainly do it. Her cold and touching voice was very calm. Chapter 284, Yun Wanshang. Could something have happened to Shiyu? But it revealed an unwavering determination. With the clarity of her Dao heart, she felt as if her realm had also loosened somewhat. In the following days, Lu Changsheng and Xiaoxia did not venture out, but continued their cultivation practice within the residence. During these days, under the guidance of Lu Changsheng, Xiaoxia's practice of the supreme forgetful love technique improved rapidly. She no longer closed her eyes and simply endured his verbal sparring, letting things happen, but would now slightly shyly collaborate a little. Although her proud chest still fluttered when caressed, it no longer caused the supreme forgetful love technique to lose its effect, and gradually she was able to control and restrain this surge of desire. Pitifully, this made things difficult for Lu Changsheng. Initially, Lu Changsheng thought he was merely helping a fairy with her practice, as if helping the future mother of his child. But once he truly assisted, this was not mere fairy cultivation, it was also a cultivation for himself. Thankfully, he had his wives in the residence. Otherwise, who could withstand it? While Lu Changsheng was practicing with the fairy at Qingyun sect Kaiyun Peak, within a magnificent palace, Yun Wanshang was seated, engaged in alchemy. A green jade pill furnace, brimming with vitality and lush greenery, slowly rotated above her head. As a nascent soul immortal, she naturally knew some skills. In terms of alchemy, although not extremely profound, she was also a second-rank alchemist. Coalesce. As she formed hand seals, she sent a spiritual art towards the pill furnace. Elixir medicines flew out one by one from the pill furnace, landing in her hands. Out of 10 elixir medicines, half were dull and scorched, clearly failures. What's wrong with me today? My mental spirit is somewhat restless during alchemy. Could it be that something has happened to Xiyu? Yun Wanshang frowned slightly as she looked at the elixir medicines in her hand. Her first thought was whether her disciple Xianxia had encountered trouble. But through the soul guide on Xianxia's body, she knew that Xianxia was not in mortal danger. Immediately, a jade token appeared in her hand. This was an information-transmitting jade token, divided into a pair of master and subordinate tokens. Although it could not convey specific information, during its creation, one could inscribe general information for simple communication. Yun Wanshang used the master and subordinate communication tokens to reach out to Xianxia, inquiring about her situation. Within the Lu family residence, in a room of a courtyard, the sound of Walla Walla could be heard. Xianxia sat in a bath bucket, her black hair lightly tied up. She scooped up the hot water tinged with flower petals with her delicate hands, gently rubbing away the non-existent saliva mark on her snowy skin. The clear, serene beauty on her face was calm, but her eyes that were as bright as the full moon trembled from time to time, clearly not as tranquil as she appeared. She had thought that after so many days of cultivation her mental state would have greatly improved, allowing her to control these emotions. Yet under Lu Changsheng's childlike behavior her Dao heart was once again challenged. But inside she did not reject such behavior. Or rather, she did not reject such behavior from Lu Changsheng. She knew that Lu Changsheng was helping her with her cultivation. And the effects of such cultivation methods also made her even more certain that Lu Changsheng was indeed the opportunity and key to her breakthrough. At that moment, Xiaoxia's mental spirit stirred slightly, and with a beckoning gesture she pulled out a jade token from the nearby storage bag. Seeing the caring message from her master on the jade token warmed Xiaoxia's heart, and a touch of softness appeared in her eyes. She also knew that her master was worried about her discipleship and training outside the mountain, and immediately replied through the jade token, indicating she was well, and asked her master to be at ease, not to worry. Although she had things she wanted to say to her own master, the jade token could only convey simple messages. Meanwhile, in Azure Phoenix Immortal City within a second-order cave mansion, Kaiyun True Immortal's disciple Xiaoxia is out on a solo training expedition. A young man around 27 or 28 years old, dressed in a crimson brocade robe, with a somewhat sinister and cunning face, looked at the message in his hand. Back then my cheap master went to ambush Yun Wanshang, only to never return. Now they send a message wanting me to go and ambush this disciple of Kaiyun True Immortal, he. The corners of the young man's mouth curled up in a cold smirk. However, for the sake of this heavenly pure water, I might as well make a trip. After all, she's just a little chi refinement girl. Moreover, if this girl was taken as a disciple by Yun Wanshang, she must have an exceptional talent. Looking at the self-destructing jade slip in his hand, greed flickered in his eyes as he stepped out of the mansion. Within the Lu family residence. Zing zing zing. In a courtyard, Xiaoxia played the ancient zither in her white dress and skirt, her demeanor cool and ethereal. The sound of the zither was lingering and extremely beautiful. But to those proficient in rhythm, it was evident that the music was somewhat chaotic. Clearly the player's heart was not at peace. Sigh. Xiaoxia stopped playing the zither, sighing deeply. Her stunningly beautiful face momentarily lost in thought with a blush creeping up her cheeks. Just recalling the events of the previous day caused desire to surge uncontrollably within her, and the supreme forgetful love technique began to circulate rapidly. That day, during their cultivation, Lu Changxing had lifted and slid off her moon-white dress, and then feelings of shyness, shame, panic, confusion, and palpitations tormented her, a sensation like gnawing bones and scorching hearts, making her tremble and unable to compose herself even now. She felt as if she were ruined. It was nothing like when she did it herself in the past. As a result, she hadn't been able to calm her emotions entirely. And then yesterday, Xiaoxia looked toward her jade foot wrapped in plain white silk stockings inside her moon-white embroidered shoes. Her eyes, usually cool and indifferent like the bright moon, were now like a lake disturbed by falling drizzle rippling slightly. Just as Xiaoxia's emotions were in turmoil and she was about to use the supreme forgetful love technique to calm herself. Knock knock knock. A series of knocks sounded at the door. Xiaoxia knew it was Lu Chongqing. This courtyard was only ever visited by Lu Chongqing. Is it time to start cultivating today? Xiaoxia felt a tinge of restlessness in her heart, mixed with faint anticipation. Xiao Daoist. Lu Chongqing looked toward Xiaoxia in front of the zither, who was clad in white, surpassing the snow, resembling the bright moon above or the Guanghan fairy, and called out with a smile. Lu Daoist, you've arrived? Xiaoxia's expression was cool, yet pleased as she looked toward the young man. She didn't know how Lu Chongqing would cultivate with her today. Xiao Daoist, I'll be away for a while as there are matters to attend to at Qingzhou Mountain, so I need to make a trip back. Thus, for the upcoming period, it might be inconvenient to cultivate with you, Lu Chongqing said upfront to the fairy before him. His trip to Rui County City for the appointment had already been earlier than scheduled. As it had been 1 or 2 months since he'd been outside, he needed to return home briefly to inform his wives and concubines and to handle affairs at the spiritual talisman shop. Although the days spent cultivating with the fairy brought both pain and pleasure, he couldn't forget his home or neglect his duties. Moreover, the cultivation with the fairy couldn't be completed in a short time, and he couldn't stay with Xiaoxia here to cultivate at a leisurely pace. Going back. Xiaoxia nodded at his words. She was aware that Lu Chongqing spent most of his time in the cultivation world, only occasionally visiting the secular realm. That he had stayed for so long in the secular world this time was because of her cultivation matters. You've had a hard time these days, Lu Daoist, Xiaoxia said softly. You're too courteous, Xiao Daoist. When I return, probably next month, I should be able to come over, Lu Chongqing replied with a smile. Though it was painful and joyful, he had also tasted its sweetness, which he found quite acceptable in his view. I'll go with Lu Daoist. I remember that Red Leaf Valley Market is near Qingzhou Mountain. That way it would be convenient for you to go back and forth, Lu Daoist, instead of the trouble of traveling to and fro. Besides, during this time I've had some insights and want to go see the cultivation world, Xiaoxia spoke out. She felt indebted for Lu Chongqing's assistance. Alright, since that's the case, let's set off right now. Lu Chongqing felt this would be better and much more convenient upon hearing her words. After all, the trip from Qingzhou Mountain to Red Leaf Valley was only half a day's journey. Spending days in the secular world was not only troublesome with the traveling back and forth but without the spirit vein, it also hindered and affected his cultivation. Xiaoxia, hearing Lu Chongqing mention setting off right away to handle proper matters, felt an inexplicable hint of slight loss in her heart upon not hearing anything about cultivating together. However, she didn't show this emotion and immediately smoothed over and erased these feelings. She nodded lightly and said, "All right." Immediately, Lu Chongqing informed his wives, concubines and children and then set off with Xiaoxia, riding flying mounts and leaving Rui County City for Red Leaf Valley Market. Chapter 285. Foundation Establishment Ambush Treasure Bones Emerge. _1 The vast clear sky was a washed azure blue. A black iron feather eagle and a majestic immortal crane with pure white feathers were soaring swiftly through the air. On the backs of the iron feather eagle and the immortal crane, there stood a handsome young man with a stalwart figure and a cold-faced, tall and graceful woman. It was Lu Chongqing and Xiaoxia who had departed from Rui County City and were heading towards the Red Leaf Valley Market. Lu Chongqing, utterly bored, watched Xiaoxia atop the crane, her tall and graceful figure draped in a moon-white dress, standing there like an ethereal fairy. Her cool and detached visage bore the pure aura of the bright moon in the sky, exuding an air of immortality. Beneath the caress of the wind, her long black hair and the hem of her dress fluttered, occasionally revealing a small section of her fair and round jade-like legs. This sight involuntarily caused Lu Chongqing to think back to the moments of her cultivation over the past several days. Indeed, to hold an esteemed and inviolable fairy beneath oneself and indulge as one pleases is the deepest desire hidden in the heart of every man, Lu Chongqing thought to himself, exhaling lightly to suppress the restlessness within his heart. For Xiaoxia, these days were for cultivation. For him, they were likewise a form of cultivation. Fellow Daoist Xiao, in about 2 days we should reach the Red Leaf Valley Market. Seeing a landmark range of mountains and having a rough idea of their location, Lu Chongqing sent a message to Xianxia. Good, Xianxia replied. Whether she was in the state of cultivation or not, she was usually not very talkative, somewhat reticent. However, if a topic was brought up to her, Xianxia would always respond. Like during these days, Lu Chongqing had asked Xianxia numerous questions. Even to some of the more personal questions she would answer. The iron feather eagle and the immortal crane continued to glide rapidly through the air. Just then, "Be careful," Xianxia suddenly exclaimed. She abruptly turned her gaze to the right where an ancient chain appeared in her hands. Alerted by her exclamation, Lu Chongqing quickly turned and looked in the same direction. He immediately saw a stream of rainbow light slashing through the sky far away, speeding directly toward them. The little girl is not simple indeed to have detected my presence. Truly worthy of being a disciple of Qiyun true immortal. In the next moment the rainbow light appeared mere zhongs away from the two. A man in his late 20s, with a sinister, effeminate face and dressed in a crimson brocade robe, materialized. Standing on a black cloud, he radiated a powerful aura of spirit pressure. It caused Lu Chongqing's iron feather eagle below him to flap its wings frantically and shiver in fear. A Foundation establishment cultivator. Lu Chongqing's pupils shrank and his gaze narrowed slightly. From the man's speed and the spirit pressure he emitted, Lu Chongqing immediately knew he was faced with a Foundation establishment great cultivator. And from the look of it, this Foundation establishment great cultivator bore no good intentions. "Senior recognizes my master. Is there something you require?" Xianxia looked toward the young man and spoke. Her fair hand rested on the chain, poised and ready to strike, clearly perceiving the ill intentions of their adversary. "I am here for you this time. As for the reason, you shall know in a moment." The man in the crimson robe spoke as he stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes revealing a glint of dark red light. As soon as he finished speaking, a mass of dark red murderous aura appeared beside him, transforming into the head of a ferocious python and roaring as it lunged toward Xianxia. Clang! Xianxia, prepared for such an event, plucked a string on the chain, and a resonant sound arose, followed by a gust of wind. It was clear to see ripples of sound waves emanating from Xianxia at the center, rolling out like a series of circular blades and crushing the murderous python with their force. But the next moment the shattered murderous python, like mist, reassembled and continued its ferocious onslaught. Realizing the situation, Xianxia understood that this foundation-building great cultivator was an enemy, not a friend. Even with her exceptional talent, she stood no chance against a Foundation establishment great cultivator. Especially since this great cultivator was evidently no ordinary one. Immediately she took out a second-rank ice blue talisman from her storage bag and activated it swiftly. A terrible frost and cold wind arose as if intending to freeze the heavens and earth, aiming to encase the murderous python in ice and form a giant wall of ice. "Go!" Xianxia didn't linger, immediately shouting to Lu Chongqing. Without hesitation she retracted the immortal crane into her spiritual pet bag and conjured a cloud veil. Her graceful figure in white dress alighted on the cloud veil, reached out to Lu Chongqing beside her and brought him onto the cloud veil. Together they turned into a beam of escape light, attempting to flee. "You think you can escape?" The man in the crimson robe watched this unfold, his lips curling up in a slight smile, his voice filled with contempt and disdain. He, a Foundation establishment great cultivator, set on interdicting a mere chi refinement miner, couldn't possibly let them get away. Even with the addition of Lu Chongqing, it only meant another chi refinement cultivator, hardly worth his concern. Scowl. The man in the crimson robe formed hand seals and shouted coldly. Suddenly his life-bound spiritual artifact, the red phoenix pearl, flew out from his dantian and hovered above his head, radiating a red glow. A beam of light shot out, casting a red glow that caused the figure of Xianxia, maneuvering the cloud veil to escape, to stiffen abruptly. Immediately after, a chilling white flying sword appeared out of nowhere, its sword chi roiling and sharpness menacing, making a beeline for Xianxia. Not good. Realizing the imminent threat of the flying sword, Xianxia knew escape was likely impossible. Quickly she slapped her storage bag and summoned a 5-colored tortoise shell. The tortoise shell shot into the air, unfolding a 5-colored radiance while exuding an aura of impregnable defense. Then a colorful sword bead appeared. The sword beads spun wildly, surrounded by terrifying sword light, seeming capable of slicing through everything. Go! Xianxia formed hand seals and shouted crisply, propelling the sword bead viciously towards the man in the crimson robe.